हाय प्रतीक। All right, so a very good evening, all of you, and a very warm welcome to another session of generative AI from HubSpot. If you're able to hear my voice and see the screen, please write yes in the chat box so that we may begin today's session. Please do not speak in the microphone. Please write yes in the chat box so that I can confirm that you're able to hear my voice and see the screen as well. Okay, I got one confirmation from Harish, other participants as well, if you can please confirm. So good evening, Harish, Amit, and Ashish. Let's continue our discussion from the same point where we left off it on the last week, on last Sunday. So we'll continue from there. We were at this point where I was giving you an introduction of what you call today as AI and ML. Fundamentally, what does it look like? And we discuss certain examples. We'll do a brief recap and then we'll continue in the same spirit. Okay. So I explained you the broad category of problems that we face in the modeling and simulation, sort of sphere of work, where we are trying to model the real world and then we are trying to predict it, forecast it, maybe, trying to manipulate it in some way. Okay. And that has been an ancient science, trying to model our environment. And in the same category, we have two kinds of solutions. Okay. One is a precise mathematical solution or an equation which describes our environment. Okay. And I gave you the example of physics, laws of physics, which are pretty straightforward, like F equals ma equals mc square and all. Okay. We did that discussion and we realized that scientists have found out very precise relationships between multiple parameters, input and output. Okay. But sometimes these relationships are not so precise, or even if they are, we are not able to find it through our experiments. Okay, so what is the option in that case if you are not able to find the mathematical equation and so on and so forth? In that case, we go for statistical sort of modeling. Okay, we go for a statistics sort of a model of our system in that case, where it is not an equation which relates the output from the input, but it's more like a statistical model. Okay. And given a bunch of input, you try to predict with a probability curve. Okay. You try to say that within a range, this is possible. Okay. So you don't go for a precise sort of a number, rather you go for a range. And that is what we were discussing in the last session, that in probabilistic or statistical sort of approaches, when you're given an input and you're asked for an output, okay, you, instead of giving a fixed number, you give a range of possible values. Okay. And each of those values in the possible range set has a probability associated with it. Okay. It has a probability associated with it. Okay. So this is the difference. The way we operate such systems is also quite different. If you remember, we had the discussion of the game of chess and all. How do you train a machine to play a game of chess? And we, discussed this, that we will let the machine play a lot of games, and then we'll label each game, that it plays as won or lost, of course. And then each move as well, we can describe as a great move or a bad move or so on and so forth. Okay. So first of all, we'll let the machine play. So the machine will play a lot of games. And from there, it will try to predict the next move kind of a thing. Whenever the board is set, the machine will try to predict which move should be most beneficial for me so that by the end of the game, I emerge victorious. Okay. Now this seems like a very simple statement, but when you start working with this, it's a totally different thing. And because many of you are from a non-technical, non-mathematical background, so I don't want you to stress your mind too much. Just try to understand the problem at a very high level. Okay, that we are not giving any equation, we're not writing any programs for the computer. All right, we are not saying that when the board is set like this and the opponent makes a move like this is the rule, this is the equation. No, there is no equation. There is only a probabilistic model. Now, how do we represent that model, and how does it look like? How do we, create that model and all is going to come in the future session. So we're not going to go into that direction today. Okay. Because right now we are still building our fundamental understanding of what we call as AI and ML. Okay. So we are basically, when we are training our machines, we are trying to improve the ability of the machine to predict the right result with the right probability, even though it cannot do it with a precisely, but still this top here, peak of the graph should overlap with the correct range. Let's say 249 is the correct answer. We know it as humans. So the machine should be able to predict it, properly with a high probability. Okay. And this is also where machine learning sort of cycles or epochs, as we call it, come into picture. So for example, when you start training a machine to do certain operation, and you have created a model and then you are giving it data to train itself upon, initially it might be off target. So initially the machine that is generating the graph and all may be slightly off target. Okay, it might be here or here, okay, or something like this. But gradually, as you keep training the machine and you start asking the same questions over and over again, finally the machine will converge at what you are expecting. And there's a lot of different approaches that go into it. So there is like broad level tuning of the machine, where you give a lot of data and unsupervised learning happens there. That means the machine is picking up anything and everything from the data. Then, once it has built a foundational sort of understanding about the problem space, then you can go ahead and do some fine tuning on it. For example, your chat GPT itself, okay, the chat GPT itself has been trained on overall about 1 terabyte or 2 terabytes of data. The original chat GPT, which was launched in 2022, okay, it was trained on almost 1 terabyte of data for months, over and over and over again. Okay. So from that 1 terabyte of data, it was able to understand the various styles in which language is written, the grammatical rules, not as rules, but as statistical distributions. For example, whenever the word is comes, so imagine this. Okay, when you train your machine over and over on huge amounts of data, statistically, I'll give you a very simple example. Whenever the word is comes, the machine understands that the following word would be there: a, an, or the. Okay. So this is kind of thing which we as humans understand as rules. Okay. We understand this as rules, but the machine may understand it as a statistical probability. So can you tell me this question from your own understanding itself, which will tell me two things about you? One, whether you understand probabilities, and the other one are you already thinking in the lines that I want you to think? Can you tell me, when we are saying writing a word is, what is the probability that the next word would be a, an, or the? For each one of them. Right? Please write in the chat box, take a guess. And there are no incorrect answers. There are no wrong points for wrong guesses. It's just we want to train our minds as well. Or can there be, any other word which is possible? If I'm not able to look at it, can you tell me, after is, can there be other words which are possible? Okay, Ashish says 1/3. Amit says 1/2. Okay, so we're not going to discuss probability in today's session because we're not going to go mathematical anytime soon. We probably will go mathematical in the coming sessions. Okay, Python will be discussed, some mathematics will be discussed, probability also may be discussed. Okay, Harish says for A, the probability is 1/3. Okay. So basically, from your answer, I understand you know how to calculate probabilities, you understand probabilities, and you are taking a guess that the distribution of A and the across the entire English language is equal. Okay, Amit says 1/2 and 1/3. Okay, so okay, okay. So basically, from your answers, I guess that you know what is probability, how it is calculated. So you have that part already done for you, at least Ashish, Amit, and Harish, you have answered. And then you are making an assumption that it's an equal distribution. Okay, but the real distribution, when ChatGPT is trained on more than 1 terabyte of data from, it is trained on basically three types of data. One is the overall website crawlers, basically. Okay, so OpenAI pulled up data, huge amounts of data, almost 500 gigabytes of data from across the internet, the websites, basically. Okay, and then almost 400 gigabytes of data was books over the internet, ebooks. Okay, and then almost 100 and 150 gigabytes of data was Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is, I would say, constantly emerging text, and it is considered as a high quality text because somebody is monitoring it on a daily basis. There's a community monitoring it. Other books and website and all, they're not monitored on a daily basis or a regular basis, right? So ChatGPT was foundationally trained on more than a terabyte of data. Okay, many of us have a laptop which has a capacity of a terabyte. Now, when you think terabyte, imagine how much time it takes to copy 1 terabyte of data from your pen drive to your laptop or so on and so forth. It can take multiple hours. What you are doing here, in fact, is you are training your machine. And when we say training a machine, we're going to see that in the future sessions, probably in the coming weekend, on the next weekend, what training really means as far as LLM is concerned. Okay, it's a purely mathematical process. We are trying to fix some numbers. We are trying to arrange some numbers, change their values. So when you say 1 terabyte of data being trained upon, that is a huge that can take a huge amount of time, even months. So the processes can go for months and months and months. And broadly speaking, the cloud computing costs for this entire process, the original for ChatGPT, the pre-training format, this is called pre-training basically. Okay, so that went into up to $5 to $6 million. Okay, just the pre-training part of it. So some of you, we were having a discussion on last weekend. Some of you are saying we would like to train our own LLMs and all. So just to give you an idea, that when you're trying to create an LLM of your own, essentially you don't want to create a foundational model from scratch. Of what is a foundational model? So can you tell me, are you aware of that term, foundational model? Have you heard that term before? You must have heard LLM and GPT and all, but have you heard about foundational model? Okay, Harish says no. Okay, let me log into my AWS console here because we're going to use AWS in this course. We're going to use the AI services from AWS. Okay. So we're going to learn some things right from the beginning. I'm going to show you some things, introduce you to certain things, so that by the end time we actually enter them, you don't feel alien to those ideas. Okay. So let me come here and let me take you to the okay, let me take you to the part where we have okay, Dr. Pawan's okay, Dr. Pawan has a question. How does one create AWS account? Well, that's a sideways question, but it's not very difficult. Just come to AWS, okay, console, and just come here and you can try to create a free account here. Create account button. It's not very difficult. That's it. Okay, but just be very careful launching services within AWS. Just go through a tutorial or something. This is not an AWS course. So just go through an AWS tutorial and make sure that you don't launch any services by mistake, because you'll start getting billed for that. And then if you don't pay up, they'll block your account. Okay, so there are only so many accounts that you can create before they identify that you're the same person. So just be careful that you don't kick off any services by mistake. Just be aware, just go through an AWS tutorial, but it's not very difficult to do. And create an account from here. So there are two essential core offerings from AWS. One is SageMaker. Okay, Amazon SageMaker. Take a look at this. I'm introducing these services to you because later on when we'll try to use them, you will not be unfamiliar with them. So I'm going to introduce them right in the beginning. Okay, so let's take a look at what is Amazon SageMaker, and then I'm going to connect it to what we are doing here, and the idea of foundational model and all. So I asked this question to you, to all of you. Have you heard about the term foundational model? I mean, it says that's called Foundry as well. Foundry is something else. I'm talking about foundational model. Foundry is a service from Azure, which is Microsoft Azure, to create agentic systems. So Foundry is something else. I'm talking about foundational model. Okay, are you aware of the term foundational model? So we'll come to that. Let me write it down here so that when I come back here, I remember that term has to be discussed. Because these days, what you hear a lot is that companies are giving you foundational models and then you are then free to use them within your organization. So how does that happen and what really is a foundational model? Okay, you know probably what LLM is, although you may not be able to define it, but you still have heard that term. Also, another term which is very popular, which a lot of people know these days, is the term GPT. Okay, not just Chat GPT, but there are so many other GPTs out there. So LLM, GPT, or you have probably heard, but foundational model is from the same universe, but you may not have heard it. Okay, Harish says, is this something a basic model which can be trained as per requirement of the organization? Yes, that is the closest definition that we can have in a non-technical sort of way. Yes, correct. So a foundational model is basically a model which can then be sort of trained for your own specific purpose, but most of the heavy job of training, the costly part, has already been taken care of by some other company, and now they are offering it for a small fee as an API. So we'll discuss all of that as well, because you need to understand what is API, how we can access cloud-based foundational models for our own organization, and also for that you need to understand the IT architecture as well. So that is the foundation that I'm going to lay in today's session as we progress further. Okay, what is API? How do these organizations actually give you access to this Chat GPT and all? How are we accessing all of this? Okay, so that all we will discuss. Okay, anyhow, let's move forward. So I told you AWS or Amazon Web Services. This also I'll introduce in today's and tomorrow's session. What really is AWS? What really is Azure? Okay, what really is your Google Cloud? What are these cloud platforms? Okay, and how do they differ from these general platforms like ChatGPT and all? Okay, so this is a cloud platform. This is your ChatGPT. ChatGPT is only giving you a text sort of an interface where you can ask questions. But here within the cloud AI platform, you can do much more. So what's the difference? So we're going to discuss all of that in today's session, because IT is the backbone. Information technology systems is the backbone upon which AI is being deployed. Okay, so we need to understand that. So I told you there are two services from AWS which are on offer. First of all is Amazon SageMaker, the Center for Data Analytics and AI. Let's take a look. The next generation of Amazon SageMaker delivers an integrated experience for analytics and AI with unified access to all of your data. Okay, now a new serverless notebook with a built-in AI agent. Okay, integrated experience for analytics and AI with unified access to all of your data. So one thing that you need to understand here is data, analytics, and AI are coming in the same sentence. This is the understanding that I'm going to lay over this weekend. Okay. People only talk about, this part here. And then they start getting excited, hyped, and, Terminator and Matrix and all those things. But what they do not understand is that there is data and analytics first, and only then there can be AI. And this has been the talk of the IT industry for decades now. This is only emerging in the past for, since 2022 or so when ChatGPT was launched. Okay. So don't get into the hype and don't get confused by it when people just start talking about AI and all. You need to understand the full picture. You need to understand the full picture. Okay. It's not just AI, there's whole system behind it of data analytics and IT. Okay. So Amazon Data Zone is now part of Amazon SageMaker. You can continue to use your existing domains using the links on this page. Okay. So let's take a look. Okay, so what is SageMaker really? Analyze and build data, build with data in this AWS account using IAM roles and permissions. Okay, what is Amazon SageMaker? So when you come to AWS, you'll find it here if you create an account. So a quick question here, how many of you already have some cloud account or something? AWS or something else? How many of you have some sort of a cloud account already? Maybe AWS. Masood, I think, already has because he's a solutions architect, AWS solutions architect. So you have it. So my recommendation is that you should go ahead and get a cloud account as soon as possible over this weekend itself. Masood has it, I know, because yeah. So other people kindly go ahead and get an AWS account. That would be best because I'm gonna cover AWS in this course, so you'll be able to do it with me alongside me. Okay. So over this weekend, try to create an AWS account. Try to create it today itself or tomorrow, so that if you face an issue, we can try to resolve it tomorrow. Okay, highly recommended. So basically, what is SageMaker? SageMaker is the service from AWS where you can use the cloud-based computers and the whole ecosystem behind it to train the foundational models for your own purpose, and not just foundational models, all sorts of machine learning you can do here with SageMaker. For example, on my machine, I've got a Linux machine here. I don't know how many of you know about Linux, but it is the operating, so just like your Windows, okay, just like your Windows operating system, Windows, what is the latest Windows? I think it's Windows 11. And similarly, you have the Mac, okay, the Mac operating system, right? In the same way, you have Linux, and Linux is the operating system of choice for a lot of hardcore developers and architects, IT architects. Okay, there are reasons for that, which I'll not go into in depth because you may not be able to understand them fully. Now, I'm using a Linux system, and on my Linux system is actually running on AMD processor, and I've got now Intel. You know about Intel and AMD, right? So I've got an AMD processor and I've got a AMD graphics processing unit, GPU, as they call it. Okay, so on my machine, I'm will not be able to run machine learning loads as well as I would be able to do on a Intel sort of a GPU. If I had an Intel machine, I would have been able to Intel processor, I'm sorry, an Intel GPU. If you feel there is any term or any concept that you do not fully understand, kindly put that in the chat box immediately so I can elaborate more on it. Okay. I'm just trying to tell you what is this entire thing built upon. Okay. So I have got a AMD processor, AMD GPU, and I've got Linux running on top of it as an operating system. This entire session that you're seeing, it's happening from of course, this doesn't look like Windows to you, right? This is Linux. Okay. So I'm using Linux here and on top of AMD processor. Now, the problem that I face is my AMD CPU and GPU are not actually really great for ML learning operations and all. If I had an NVIDIA Intel CPU and an NVIDIA sort of GPU, I would have been able to do a lot of machine learning training and all on my own computer, although my computer is quite powerful, but because it's not NVIDIA GPU, I'm not able to do that here. So what are my options? If I want to, let's say I have a foundational model and if I want to train it according to my requirements, then should I go and buy a powerful computer with NVIDIA graphics processing unit? Should I spend like a lakh rupees? Because the GPU itself can cost up to a lakh. Right now, my GPU costs about 35,000. I bought it in 2024. Okay, so a powerful GPU can easily cost up to 1 lakh or more. And the underlying computer upon which you are installing that GPU can cost another 1 lakh or so. So a powerful computer with a powerful GPU can cost anywhere between 2 to 2.5 lakhs today. Okay. So if I want to train some basic model, using NVIDIA GPUs and all, that's my upfront cost if I don't have that sort of computer already. So what are my options? Should I go and buy that computer? And what if I just want to do some experiments initially, and then later on, if I feel I might make that investment? So for that purpose, this service from AWS comes into picture, right? So they already have created an online sort of, I mean, they have real data centers in Mumbai and Hyderabad. They've got two regions in India, okay, AWS Mumbai and Hyderabad. Apart from that, there are other remote sort of, I would say, locations as well, which serve data, but primarily computing wise, they've got two primary hubs in which we call as in AWS, we call it as a region. They've got two primary regions, one in Mumbai, another one in Hyderabad. So there they have, proper facilities where NVIDIA GPUs and computers and everything are being deployed for machine learning. And through this Amazon SageMaker service, you can access those computers and NVIDIA GPUs without buying them, without getting tied up, without making that upfront payment. So as long as you run the load and all, you just pay for that amount. Okay, you just pay for that particular amount. So you can set up your SageMaker and then set up your task here with all the data, and the exact machine learning task will execute on AWS's data centers and all. Okay, so this is the SageMaker service. I'll not go deep into it today. Okay, this will probably happen by the end of the course. We'll try to deal with SageMaker, and the other one that we want to talk about is Bedrock. So SageMaker is for machine learning. Okay, when you want to train your system for on your own specific data. This is something what other people were asking, other participants were asking last weekend, that we know a lot of people who have trained their own LLMs on their own data and so on and so forth. So this is probably the service that you will use if you try to do that in the future. Okay, if you try to do that in the future, probably this is the service that you're going to use for that, because of course nobody buys a computer just for machine learning purposes. And there's another problem with buying a machine, that it still has a limitation. Okay, that 2.5 lakh computer that you buy will still have a limitation of how much it can do. Here the possibilities are infinite if you have the money in your pocket, and also you don't have to pay anything upfront. You can pay in very small chunks. Okay, so this is always a good option. So Ashish says, so it's like get a foundational model, use AWS SageMaker for the Amazon high-end resources to train that model, if I'm correct. Yes, absolutely correct there. As of now, going into the second week of the course, if you're able to understand that much, you are, really good. Okay, in that sense. So you take a foundational model, which any company like Cloud or OpenAI or DeepSeek, or there are so many out there. Anthropic is another company. We'll take a look at the various foundational models which are available within AWS on offer. So these companies have spent, millions of dollars in training their foundational models. Okay, they have spent millions of dollars. And when we say training the foundational models, it's the data that they have created, the trained data. Okay, the basic associations through which the foundational model actually predicts, or gives the token or generates text and all. So that data is the real value that they have created, apart from the model as well. Model is also very important. Okay, so how many of you know about DeepSeek? How many of you know about DeepSeek, the Chinese GPT that came, I think, in 2024?
Um, yeah, Pratik, I heard about it and I'm using it also.
Okay, so all right. Okay, so I would request all of you to kindly use the chat box for interaction, because speaking up in the microphone can sort of, it has a shocking effect actually on all the participants. So I would request you to use the chat box, but if you absolutely have to use the microphone, there is a raise hand sort of a button here. In If you go to more, and then there is reactions, and there is a raise hand button. I just raised my hand right now. So kindly raise your hand, then I'll tell you to, just use the microphone, then kindly go ahead and do that. Thank you. Thank you, Dilip, for that. Because, speaking up suddenly into the microphone has a shocking effect on everyone. It brings you out of your trance. Okay. So don't break the trance. Thank you. Okay. So DeepSeek actually came somewhere around 2024. Okay. And at that point of time, there was a huge scandal where this is Chinese, by the way. DeepSeek is from China. Okay. I don't use it. I gave it a try a long time back, around a year and a half ago. At that point of time, it was said that, so let's ask Chat GPT our question. So there was a huge scandal at that time. Try to understand this. Okay, okay, so let's try to ask this question. What was the scandal between OpenAI and DeepSeek at its launch time? Okay, let's take a look. Then you will understand how these companies operate and what sort of competition is happening. Okay, take a look at this. So when DeepSeek was launched in January 2025, okay, and they claimed performance is similar to leading Western models. It's a Chinese thing. Okay, DeepSeek is a Chinese AI startup. Dramatically lower training costs, reported around $6 million versus hundreds of $1 million for some rivals. So this here is the cost involved that I was talking about. To create a foundational model which can actually generate text, images, and so on and so forth, the training cost can be hundreds of millions of dollars, as claimed by the Western companies like OpenAI, Cloud, and so on and so forth. Okay, whereas DeepSeek claimed around $6 million, but it's a Chinese claim, so I'm not very sure about it. Okay, open weight, open source leaning approach. This shocked industry economics and triggered geopolitical and competitive tension. But China once again, so you don't want to get too much into it. Anyhow, the core scandal was there wasn't just one single scandal. It was a cluster of accusations, investigations, and debates. Let's take a look at what happened. So from this scandal, you will get an idea what is actually happening in the AI industry, what sort of competition is happening, and where does India and our ecosystem fit into it. Okay, that will give you a very clear idea, because you are in India, or maybe around India, or centered in India, and you need to understand like where we are in this all of this entire thing, because we don't have a I don't think we have a very popular India-based foundational model till now. But that said, I am already observing quite sophisticated deployments of AI in India in local languages. For example, just yesterday, I think I got a call from SBI, and it was an automated call. Somebody was speaking on the other side, and I thought it was a human for almost, I would say, 4 or 5 minutes. I was in conversation, and I really thought that it was a human. The voice modulation, the way it understood my query, the way it answered without any pauses and all, I thought it was a human. But by the 3 4 minutes period, I got an idea that this is not a human, this is an AI. And I was really impressed by the level of sophistication of voice based AI, which can actually interact with you in Hindi language, right? So we are also making a lot of progress, but we are not making a lot of noise. Okay, China and the West, what they do. So anyhow, let's try to understand. The original accusation from OpenAI was that DeepSeek may have trained its models using OpenAI output. This is usually called model distillation. Okay. What OpenAI claimed? OpenAI said it saw evidence that DeepSeek may have distilled knowledge from its model. Distillation is training a new model using responses generated by another model. So basically, when we actually go into the training sort of fundamentals and all, what is meant by training and all over the next weekend, you will start to realize that there is a huge human input into that as well, human aspect, because the websites that you have crawled and downloaded from the what OpenAI downloaded, the ebooks, the Wikipedia, that is all there. Okay, that has been there for almost 3 4 decades, which is what we're going to see today. The IT industry for 3 4 decades has put a lot of content over the internet, which can be accessed by anyone. but it's not monitored. Okay, ChatGPT has trained itself on data which is not monitored. Wikipedia is monitored, but ebooks and other websites and all, who created what language is written, whether it is proper or not, what data is there, nobody is kind of verifying that, and it's not possible to verify. Okay, before I try to create my foundational model, I'll not go to the internet and check out billions of websites and what's written there. Whatever is written, I'm training my model on that, whether it is garbage or not, right? But then from that, OpenAI did not try to build a knowledge base. It only tried to refine the understanding of the English language. Okay, the only from that 1 terabyte of data, they did not try to gain any domain knowledge or anything. Like ChatGPT did not learn anything about medical science. And today, if you ask about medical diagnosis and medical field and all about from ChatGPT, ChatGPT gives very intelligent answers, but it was not a unsupervised part of the learning, right? So from that original 1 terabyte of training, which was random, just get anything from the internet and train yourself, they were trying to have ChatGPT understand the structure of the English language. Okay, we are going to create our own learning algorithm as well, and we're going to train our own small sort of, we're going to call it a foundational model, a small language model. We're going to do that over the coming weekends, and we're going to train our machine over 10,000 words and 20,000 words and like that. Okay, whereas ChatGPT was trained on 500 million words. 500 million, not 500 million, I'm sorry, I'm wrong there. 400 or 500 billion words. Okay, so I wanted to say 500 billion. Okay, so compared to our model, which we'll build over the next weekend, where we will train our machine over, let's say, 10,000 words or 20,000 words. From there, our model will try to understand the structure of the English language. Okay, imagine OpenAI, which trained its machine on 500 terabyte, half a trillion words. Okay, 500 billion words. So India's population is what, 150 billion? Okay, so 3 times of that. The total number of words that ChatGPT is trained on is 3 times the number of words that is the population of India. Okay, that just gives you a mental model. So that many words ChatGPT is trained on, and how many words really the English language have? How many alphabets does English language really have? Okay, not many, not many. Okay, so if you take a look at all the frequently used, so I can ask this question to ChatGPT itself. Let's ask this question because we have a lot of interesting questions now. Okay, how many? Um, okay, let me ask this question. Mhm. Okay, so let's ask it like this. Okay, if I write 100,000 word essay, which is a very big essay, or let's say mini book, let's call it. Okay. So please understand my prompt that I'm giving to ChatGPT. We're going to talk about prompt engineering as well in coming sessions. Probably tomorrow itself, we're going to talk about it. But for now, I'm just trying to show you how it works. If I write 100,000 word, okay, that's 1 lakh word mini book. Okay. What is the total count? Okay. Or let me approximate it, because if you ask a very precise question, ChatGPT might deny that I won't be able to give you a total, but it can give you an approximate. So remember, your GPTs, your language models are probabilistic engines. They're not precise output generating machines. Okay, they are not cars. They're not even your usual mobile and laptop. They cannot give you precise answers. And many times, this is a very interesting point. Much of the things that I'm going to discuss you, they're going to open up like branches. Okay, I'm going to say something and then 10 more branches will open up from there. So I'll give you a very simple example. How many of you on LinkedIn or Facebook or any other professional platforms or within your own organizations have seen people debating about, I asked the question like 2 plus 2 is, what is 2 plus 2? And ChatGPT gave me an answer that 2 plus 2 is 5 or 4.3 or something. How many of you have gone, seen jokes like that? That I asked ChatGPT what is 2 plus 2? Or some people have also asked questions like, how many A's are there or how many R's are there in the word strawberry? Please confirm how many of you have seen posts like that and then they start making fun of AI. Okay, this is the AI that people are talking about will take our jobs away. And this is the, it cannot even predict what is 2 plus 2 and cannot even count the number of R's in strawberry. Okay, Harish has seen that. Okay. So you see a lot of posts, okay, on LinkedIn and people talking about AI and they're making fun of AI. Okay, this is the AI. It cannot even do 2 plus 2. It cannot even count the number of R's in strawberry and all. So they make fun of it. Okay. But what they are actually showing is their own ignorance because AI is not supposed to give you precise answers. AI is not here to do 2 plus 2 because that was already done 75 years ago by computers or even 100 years ago by computers. Okay, computers do 2 plus 2 equals 4 every single day. That's a rule based calculation. That is what we clarified right in the beginning of the course. Do not be ignorant. Okay, try to understand what is what. I told you right in the beginning that human computing, the field of computing, started with rule based computing. Rule based is precise, right? Rule based is precise. You are teaching your computer or you are creating computers which can precisely give you an answer for a mathematical operation. One number added with another number, and you get the output. Okay. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Okay. 2 plus 2 equals 4. So do not think that AI is supposed to do that. No, AI is not supposed to give you precise. It may or may not give it. I'm not saying it cannot give. I'm saying it may or may not give. But you are not asking the right questions. If you're making fun of it, you are trying to imagine. Uh, okay, now this might seem funny, but you are trying to use your toothbrush to change your tire of your car, okay, where you need some other tool, but you're using toothbrush for that, and then you're making fun of the toothbrush that you cannot use it to change the tires of your car when it goes punctured and you want to change the tire because there's another tool for that. Okay. So don't get carried away because you're attending a proper full-fledged comprehensive AI and ML course here. So from when by the time you end this course, you should be aware of what AI is actually capable of, what we are expecting from it, what it is really capable of doing, and where we actually go wrong. And then we get carried away with the hype and also show our ignorance when we make fun of it. Okay. So it's not actually there to give you precise answers. You must have that expectation. So when I ask a question to ChatGPT or any other AI model, I'm not looking for precise answers. I'm not looking for exact, okay, tell me this. No, I am looking for a probabilistic answer. Okay, probably what do you think could be the right answer? And if I give it full freedom, then the AI platform will give me maybe multiple answers there. So 4 or 5 answers, all of these are probable, they are highly probable, high probability. And then I as a human have a responsibility. That's the final human in the loop kind of a thing, where the human has to decide what is the actual correct answer out of all these probable answers. So if don't think that you have to leave your brain when you are going to use AI. No, your brain is being augmented. It's complemented. Okay. An additional tool is given to you, to your mind to solve your problem. So have that mindset. Okay. Your AI is a probabilistic engine and it'll give you probable answers. And the answers will also depend on the quality of training and all. And that is where the actual competition is happening between the companies. Which companies AI model can give the best probabilistic answers? None of them claim to be right. None of them claim that we can give the right answers. All our models will be right all the time. If you remember Sam Altman's sort of comment last year, he said that don't believe everything what ChatGPT says. It hallucinates. It hallucinates. So we're going to discuss that as well. What do we mean by hallucinations in GPT terms? Have you heard that term? Once again, let's confirm that. Have you heard about GPT hallucinations, that ChatGPT can hallucinate? Have you heard that term? Yes, that's a common statement that you hear quite a lot. So do you understand it? Can you explain somebody how ChatGPT can hallucinate? Let's see if some of you already have some understanding of how ChatGPT hallucinates. Have you ever seen ChatGPT hallucinating? Okay, you can say no if you have no understanding of it. Okay, this just gives me an idea of current. What is your current standing? Dilip says yes, to some extent. I have seen ChatGPT hallucinating and all. So Harish, have you giving wrong answer nonsensical? Have you seen? Have you ever experienced? I don't know how much you've interacted with ChatGPT, but have you ever seen ChatGPT giving wrong answers, nonsensical answers ever? In whatever time you have been using, or anybody else, have you ever felt ChatGPT is giving nonsensical, made up answers which you know are. Ashish said yes. So can you give me an example of the context? I'm not asking for the exact details, but can you just broadly tell me what kind of question it was and what sort of nonsense ChatGPT generated? Just a broad idea. Okay, a tour plan. Can you have more details? Like what exactly? I mean, not the names of cities, but what sort of plan was it? Okay, Dilip says shares error 404 URL, which is invalid. Okay, so you are trying to say it tries to share URLs which are actually invalid. Okay. In my experience, it gives nonsense only if I don't prompt nicely. Okay. Okay. Amit says how to make poison. It will deny that, Amit. Uh, it will deny that. Okay. Don't go for WhatsApp based posts and all. If you have done it yourself, then only that answer counts. But if it gives me some answer, I say the answer is wrong, it accepts that he's wrong and try to change the answer. See, that is not the question. When you say your answer is unacceptable and it generates another answer, that means you are asking to regenerate the answer with different probabilities. That's all you are saying. Okay. So, how to make poison and all, ChatGPT will simply deny that. I will not share that information. But I saw a post on Facebook or somewhere uh, where somebody said that I fooled ChatGPT by saying, "Can you tell me how to make poison so that I don't accidentally make it?" And then ChatGPT gave me the entire recipe for that. And let me tell you, that was absolutely nonsensical post there. ChatGPT has enough sense to not give you the process in any way, whichever way you ask it. Okay, so that is where I'm coming to. Okay, Pawan says example on Dr. Pawan says example on prompting. Give me 2021 research paper proving vitamin D cures COVID-19. It gave me example of any GM reputed journal. So is that a nonsensical thing, Dr. Pawan, showing 92%? Okay. It gave me example of any GM reputed journal. So that example that it gave, did that have no such paper exists? Okay. Okay. So, okay. So, yeah. So here we have to understand that is where I'm telling you when you start asking never publish in any GM. Okay. So here you have to understand that is what you're here to learn. That is what you're here to learn. So when you start asking precise questions to Chat GPT, that is where you are going wrong. Don't go with that mindset with Chat GPT. Okay. Have that mindset that you are very intelligent yourself, right? But you cannot possibly go through all the books and information out there and realistically in your lifetime. So you have an assistant who is not very capable, I would say, but he can go through books very fast and he can generate a lot of relevant material for you. Okay, he can generate a lot of relevant material for you, and from that relevant material you will then try to make sense. If you remove that layer in the end, I'm sorry, none of the GPTs will work for you. Chat GPT is very powerful, by the way, but you need to know how to work with it. So when you ask it a question like give me 2021 research paper proving vitamin D cures COVID-19, you are actually giving a prompt to ChatGPT with a very high confidence. Your statement has a confidence level, and mind you, ChatGPT can judge. It has metrics inside built inside it where it can gauge the confidence level of the question. So if it would have been a question, give me a research paper from any year between 2020 to 2025, which closely resembles or which closely which is very close to the theory that vitamin D cures COVID-19. If you give it a very broad, open-ended sort of a query where you can go out and search here and there, try to match things, then it will give you a bouquet of answers from which you can actually shortlist. But if you ask it a very high confidence question, give me a 2021 research paper proving vitamin D cures COVID-19. So from your sentiments, this is called sentiment analysis. We're going to discuss that as well as we move forward. So ChatGPT gains a sentiment that you're highly confident about it. That means you're telling ChatGPT that knowledge exists. So ChatGPT will answer with the same confidence level. Okay, it reflects your confidence level. So it will simply say this. So what it wanted to say was, probably you will find it in a reputed journal. Please understand, it is only a text generation machine. It's not a knowledge generation machine. Understand? It's only a text generation machine. So it probably wanted to say you can go through some reputed journals like NEJM or whatever it is, NEJHM. So it would have given you a bunch of reputed journals that you could have yourself gone through. Then you could have asked, like, which of these papers or which of these journals probably have a mention of vitamin D and COVID-19 in the same paper. Okay, so then it would have gone ahead and tried to find some papers where vitamin D was also mentioned in the same paper or COVID-19 was mentioned in the same paper. So it is a probabilistic machine. It's measuring probability. What's the probability that vitamin D and COVID-19 are mentioned in the same book or article or paper? And then it will try to take it that particular resource. But when you ask a very high confidence question, it will give you high confidence answer, whether it is correct or not. Now you cannot say ChatGPT is generating nonsensical answers there. The reason is you're not understanding how it works. First of all, it is a probabilistic engine. Okay, it only generates a bunch of answers with around the similar probabilities. This is also possible, that is also possible, this is also possible. And then at the second level, it's a text generation machine. Text. It generates text, okay, which it feels is highly probable in this particular scenario. The prompt is given. It is not a knowledge generation, not sharing knowledge with you, mind you. It is only sharing text with you. So do not mistake text for knowledge. So understand, ask open-ended questions. Do not ask very precise questions. ChatGPT will give you very precise, confident answers there, even if they are not correct. And never think that ChatGPT will give you one short sort of solution for your problem. ChatGPT, don't expect that thing. Ask open-ended questions to ChatGPT. It'll give you so many things. Go through them, fine-tune your query once again, and then re-query it, and then it will, iteratively, you will eventually reach a point where you will probably have the answer. Okay. Ashish said, another incident I asked, what's Google anti-gravity? It said it's just a joke. So Ashish said, I asked, what is Google anti-gravity? It said it's just a joke. Okay. I'll have to check that out. So I don't even, I'm not very aware of what is Google anti-gravity. Let's check it out. I think I've heard something related to that. Okay, but I haven't used it. Okay. Google anti-gravity experience liftoff with the next generation ID. What is this ID? Let's check it out. I'm not very confident of Google's AI products. I'm not downgrading it, but it's not just coming so well in the industry. Google anti-gravity is our agentic development platform, evolving the ID into the agent first era. Okay. Okay, high level abstract. So basically, for agent-based development, we have got Google's offering here, but I'm not very confident about it. One company which is doing very well in this area is Anthropic. Okay, large companies usually fail at subsequent innovation, but this is one company which is actually doing a great job in the AI and ML field, which is Anthropic. It's Cloud Code and Cowork. Correct. Okay. So let's take a look here. Okay. So I don't know. Let's ask this question once again. Okay. Because you said it's a joke. Let me ask this question here once again in a new chat. Open in a new chat. Okay. Okay. Explain. Okay. Let's ask this question here. What is Google anti-gravity? Let's ask a very simple question here. Let's see if it answers nonsense. Okay. Google anti-gravity is a fun Easter egg, basically a hidden joke feature created by Google engineers and later recreated on mirror size. When you activate it, the normal Google homepage looks like gravity suddenly breaks and all page elements start falling. So it's not going to the right direction. This is not nonsense. Okay, it is going into another direction. So let me ask it again. Okay. Okay. So compare agentic. Let's ask this question. Agentic IDEs and work spaces on offer. Agentic development IDEs and workspaces on offer from major IT companies. Okay, with a special emphasis on anti-gravity IDE. Be very specific about what you're asking. Anti-gravity IDE from Google. Let's see what it answers this time. So now you see it is searching the web. It's not answering from the pre-trained data. Okay, it was searching the web. So let's take a look. Okay, now it's giving everything, all the various. So take a look here. Now it is answering Google Anti-Gravity, the agent first IDE. What is Google Anti-Gravity? Is Google's new agentic development platform and IDE introduced alongside Gemini 3. Code-defining ideas, the developer stops writing code line by line. The developer delegates goal to autonomous agents. Anti-gravity is built around what Google's called an agent first paradigm. So here, do you see what I meant, Ashish? Do you see nonsense here now? It's giving a very detailed answer about how Google anti-gravity works. So the problem is not with ChatGPT. By looking at the scenario, I understand it doesn't give the same answer to two people for the same question, but how we are asking also makes a difference. Yes, that is what is called as prompt engineering, right? How you ask the question, how you frame the question, how you give the context to ChatGPT and all makes all the difference. Because if you don't give it a reference point here, when you ask this, what is anti-gravity? Maybe, and this, when it generated this answer, it did not go for searching the web kind of a thing. So it simply is answering from the pre-trained data, what it already has. And probably it has pre-trained on some Google anti-gravity sort of feature earlier on, maybe. Okay, but now when I gave it a proper sort of query and a context, compare agentic development IDs and workspaces on offer from various companies and special emphasis on anti-gravity IDE from Google. So on multiple levels, I am being very specific about the area. So it first of all searched the web. That means it was not digging into what it already knows, but it went ahead onto the web, uh, brought down some more information from there, and then it tried to, okay. Even if I didn't ask it to look into the internet, but it did search on web. Yes, it depends on how you prompt it. If your prompt looks like, see what's on, see what's going out there, see what is available, then it will automatically go to the web. Okay, when you ask it a question like what you already know, then it may or may not go to the web. Or if the prompt looks like that, I may not be knowing something, or if the user is asking me to go and check out what's going out there, then it will go to the web. Okay, it depends on, even I have not asked it to go to the web. I've simply asked it to compare agentic development IDs on and workspaces on offer from major IT companies, and it decided on its own that probably it's better to go to the web and find out what's going out there. Okay, Amit says, I just asked like this, what is Google anti-gravity? It says it in an internet joke. Yes, that's a similar kind of thing that it answered me as well. Google anti-gravity is a fun Easter egg, basically a hidden joke feature. So probably they did it earlier and that has stuck with its pre-training data. But when I was more specific about the area that I'm querying so it gave me a very intelligent, detailed answer about the entire thing. So just be aware of that. It's not chat gpt's mistake. Just like in the early age of computers, a lot of people started hitting their computers when it was not working properly. But we have to understand the limitation of a computer, how much it can do, how much it cannot do. Similarly for your gpts as well, chat gpt is very powerful. They spent a lot of money and they have done a lot of cross domain training. They have done a lot of fine tuning, instructional fine tuning, labeled fine tuning, which we're going to discuss in the future. They have made it very, very intelligent, multiple layers operating. It's not just one simple go to your vector database and generate text. No, it has multiple layers of knowledge, chat gpt. Okay. And it has, I would say, condensed knowledge into various areas and okay, it has condensed knowledge into various areas and departments and zones and categories. And also ChatGPT knows what it's talking about. And when you ask it to merge knowledge from multiple fields as well, that's also it can do something. It can do. Okay. Harish says, okay, so it will automatically look into the web if it doesn't have enough information from the trained data. Yes, that has been happening for about a year and a half now, where if the prompt is such that from which the GPT thinks that probably it's better to gather some more information before I start answering, then it will pull the data from the web. Yes, that's been happening. That was not there in 2023, 2022. Even in the first part of 2024, it was not there, but it has been happening for almost a year now, or a few months at least. I don't exactly whether it has been a year, but it has been happening for quite some time now. So if you ask a prompt in a way where chat gpt feels that it can do better by pulling data, so it will do that. Okay, let's take a look at some other comments as well. Okay, so Dilip says it auto deletes initial chat conversation sometimes if we use same window frequency. I didn't get that comment, Dilip. What do you mean by same window frequency? Chat gpt, what we are using now, I don't know what model you are using. Are you using chat gpt plus? Are you using Chat GPT Plus, GPT 5.2? What version are you using? I'm using Chat GPT Plus here. Depends on what model you are using as well. This is the latest, our smartest model, and I can still upgrade it to the pro level, which will remove a lot of limits for me. But I think it is working enough for me now, for as of now. Chat GPT Plus 5.2. So if you can elaborate on what you really mean by same window frequency, I think I'll be able to talk about it then. Okay. Uh, Dr. Bhavan says, in my experience, it gives nonsense only if I don't prompt nicely. Yes, it depends on the prompt. Okay. Depends on the prompt heavily. Because your prompt is what triggers knowledge extraction from what it already knows. If your prompt itself is, we did that experiment over the last weekend. I think you were not present there on the Sunday session. So we did an experiment where I gave a nonsensical prompt and it generated an image for me. And then as I refined my prompt slightly, I started getting better answers. So prompt is everything. Incorrect prompt, nonsensical prompt, unclear prompt will generate uh, data which will not be very useful for you. Okay. Shares error 404 URL which is invalid. So don't ask precise answers. ChatGPT is not going to take you to a specific website. That's not ChatGPT's job. Okay, ChatGPT will not go and search the web and get you the right website. That's what Google search engine is for. Okay, we haven't reached that point where you can ask ChatGPT to take you to a specific website which can fulfill all your needs and all for products or whatever. If you're looking for a specific product or service, take me to that website. No, ChatGPT cannot do that. It's not built for that. It's built for going deep into its existing knowledge base, getting some more data from the web, and mixing those two, and then generating a text which most probably answers your query. So just understand what it is capable of doing. Do not ask precise questions. Do not Ask ChatGPT for precise websites or URLs or locations. Don't do that. Okay. Ask for recommendations. Okay. Ask for recommendations. So what do you think ChatGPT, what sort of website and all will, best satisfy my current requirement or so? For example, I was recently in Varanasi, just, last week and all. And when I was around the Kashi Vishwanath temple, I asked ChatGPT, can you recommend some very popular eating joints around which for a proper meal, okay, and which are popular as per local reviews and all. But I'm not looking for that YouTuber kind of a thing where a lot of people are visiting just for vlogs. No, I want a proper decent place which is very well known. And it gave me a lot of answers which if you go to YouTube and all for recommendations, and even if you go to Google search, Google Maps, you will probably not be able to identify them. They'll still be there, but you'll not be able to identify. But ChatGPT was able to give me recommendations. It gave me 5 or 6 places, and then one place which I like best was Dakshin Kashi, which is very near to the temple. And when I went there, there was just one other family or something, something having food there. It was partially empty, but when the food arrived, it was absolutely amazing. Absolutely. I mean, I haven't eaten such meal for a very long time in any restaurant anywhere. And we usually go out quite often. Okay. So the idea here is ask for recommendation, ask for probabilistic answers. Okay. Do not ask. So I didn't ask a question like, give me one restaurant which will be very good for me. And this is it. So I don't ask questions like that. Ask for recommendation. What do you recommend? Okay, around this area. So it will go in, try to find out from all the sources, and it probably found some very old reviews and all for Dakshin Kashi, which you will not find on YouTube so much because there was nobody there. It was an ordinary restaurant in some side lane, but it's very old, it's very good, and very cost friendly. Okay, so it was able to find that out according to my need. Right, so be ask very open-ended questions, ask recommendations, ask probabilistic look for probabilistic answers, and then do your own make your own choices. Okay, so let's ask this question. If I write a 100,000 word mini book, okay, if I write a 100,000 word mini book, what is the approximate total count of words with a probability So if I write a 100,000 word mini book, what is the approximate total count of words with a probability of 95% or more? P95 with a, so this is the way you write probability of 95, right? So I'm just writing it here. Probability of 95, 0.95 out of 1 or 95%. Approximate total count of words with a P95 of appearing once in every 30 words. Okay. So I'm looking for words which have a very high probability. This is a very high probability count, which have a very high probability of appearing in my text in once in every 30 words. So if I'm writing 100,000 words, every 30 words, some words will repeat, like is, and, the, are, am, we, you. What other words will be there? So what is the, and I'm not asking for specific words, I'm just asking for the approximate total count. Okay, so let's see what sort of answer it generates for me. Let's take a look. Okay, so total words in the book 100,000. Specific word or token has probability 0.95, frequency once every 30 words. Expected frequency without probability factor. If something appears once every 30 words, then in 100,000 words, okay, so normally you would expect about 3,333 occurrences. So you can see ChatGPT has broken down my problem mathematically step by step. So it's saying how many total words are there in my text which will have more than 3,000 occurrences. It has automatically inferred that from my, mathematically. This is what I mean. And then it is multiplying with the probability of P95. So around 3,000. How many words from English language will appear in my 100,000 book almost 3,000 times? Let's take a look. If you actually wrote the book many times under the same statistical pattern, the word would appear around 3,000 times on average, correct? A real count would fluctuate around this number depending upon variance in word distribution. Correct. Probabilistic once again. If you want, I can also compute confidence interval around this expectation. Variance assuming binomial or Poisson approximation, Zipfian language distribution, interpretation, token versus word level estimate. Okay. Okay. So just tell me which direction you want to go. So it has, first of all, it hasn't generated the total count. So it has understood my question in another way. What is I understood it as is that I want to know how many times that word will appear. So let me be more specific now. Okay. Which English words, okay, which English words, okay, from the Indian dialect, from the Indian English dialect, okay, which English words from the Indian English dialect are most probable to appear in my text. Let's see, in my text, according to, okay, which English words from the Indian English? So I have to be very careful here how to describe the point prompt here. So which English words from the Indian English dialect? So I have to be very specific which dialect I'm looking for, not the American words, not the British. I don't want Shashi Tharoor's English. I want an ordinary Indian salesperson's English. Okay, are most probable to appear in my text according to the above. Okay, or not according to in my text following the above occurrence pattern. Let's see if it understood my prompt. Which English words? Okay, let's take a look. This becomes a socio-linguistic plus statistical modeling problem. You're basically asking which Indian English dialect words have a high enough natural frequency that they could realistically occur 1 in 30 words in a long Indian context English text. That is actually a very high frequency threshold in natural language, 1 in 30 words. So only functional words or high cultural discourse markers usually reach this level. So we are looking for Indian English markers that behave almost like discourse glue, not niche vocabulary. So such a high probability of occurrence means you're not looking for, Shashi Tharoor like words, egregious, and so many other words that he uses. You're mostly looking for words which appear over and over again, like discourse glue. Okay, for example, a lot of Americans, in colloquial terms, when they speak, they say it's like it's amazing. It's like I'm like so like can be a word in the American dialect which appears over and over again. Whereas when you talk about Indian dialect, words like the, only, right? I'm just talking to you only, and I'm just asking you, or this is this the only option? So only is a word which can appear quite frequently in the Indian dialect. So let's see what it has found out. Okay, I'll divide them into tiers of probability realism. Let's take a look. Tier 1, extremely high probability, most realistic candidates. These are the Indian English discourse fillers and cultural function. So when you talk to Chat GPT in terms of statistics and text, statistics and words, okay, it performs the best. But when you think that it's a predictive wizard or astrologer or somebody who can solve all your problems, that is where you're going wrong. Okay. ChatGPT loves statistics. ChatGPT loves language. ChatGPT loves alphabets, words, and how language is structured, how do people speak, and so on and so forth. Okay. But it doesn't love when you ask ChatGPT to behave like a prophecy maker, okay, or a predictor or a guru which can solve all your problems. No. So take a look at how ChatGPT is enjoying this conversation here with all the iconography and everything. It has put a medal and flag and everything. This is an example when ChatGPT is actually loving a conversation, when it puts a lot of iconography and everything. So these are Indian English. Okay. Only I told you this. Didn't I tell you this? I didn't read this by then when I was coming here. This was my guess. So please confirm. Do you feel I was right on the dot here? I didn't see it. Trust me, I didn't see this word. The first word that comes up according to English dialect is only. And that is what I was saying when I was just here. So please confirm if you feel now that ChatGPT is able to identify patterns very powerfully. As an Indian, I know, that we use the word only quite a lot when we are trying to say English. I mean, speak in English. It is our go-to word, okay, for everything. Okay, because we have a lot of words in Hindi which replace only, but in English, only does a lot of thing for Indians. Only sometimes also acts as a semantic border for our sentences as well. All right. So the first word that ChatGPT has identified is only. He told me yesterday only, this problem started today only, and understand this that ChatGPT knows how Indians talk. Indian English uses only as an emphasis particle much more frequently than Global English. Very strong candidate, appears repeatedly in narration and explanation. Statistics could realistically approach your 1 by 30 rate. Okay. Also, yes, basically, actually, right? Only and itself combination, here itself, there itself, now itself. Okay. So then you have tier two, high probability cultural markers. So these are sort of, I would say, more emotional kind of words. Okay, more emotional kind of words here. Also, Indian ways, do one thing, prepone, do needful. Yes. Okay, FYI. Yes, but they're also quite global. We are asking for Indian dialects. So we have already seen the examples here. Okay, if I can ask ChatGPT, it will elaborate and give me 10, 20, 15 more such words according to the probabilistic. Yes. Okay. But FII and PFA and all, it will not list here because they are more like acronyms. Okay, they are slangs. So it will not probably list it unless and until I ask for slangs. Then it will list it. So if I ask for it, what are the most probable Gen Z slangs in India? So you can ask prompts like that. Okay. ChatGPT loves probabilistic answers. So only, also, basically, actually, only, itself are high probability answers. Top five words, which can appear quite frequently. Then the next level. These appear often, but usually slightly below your extreme 1 by 30 rate. Okay. Proper. I think, did you mention proper here? Looping in, noted. Okay. So proper is another word. Do it proper, kindly, doubt. I have a doubt. That's the favorite Indian emotion, doubts. Okay. The Argumentative Indian is a book written by Amartya Sen. Okay. We are perpetually living in doubt as Indians, which is very good, but not too much. Revert, updation, not global English standard, but common Indian corporate usage, updation. Okay. Tier three. Now we are coming to the slang part. Yaar, are, acha, na, only, na, hai na. ChatGPT understands this as well. Okay. Yes. So ChatGPT understands this as well here. It understands all of this. So if you ask ChatGPT to generate a text in Indian dialect, it can actually generate it for you. Okay. More statistically plausible top five for your 1 in 30 pattern. If I had to bet on realistic corpus behavior, I would. So take a look. If I had to bet, don't ask for precise answers, ask for probabilistic answers. Okay, so only, also, actually, basically, itself. Why these words fit? Repeat reinforcement markers, use explanatory scaffolding, use emphasis particles. So they are basically our expression language. Okay, when we want to add a pinch of emotion into our statements, we use these words. Only, also, actually, basically. They don't fulfill any functional importance there, but they act as emotional fillers. When we want to emphasize here itself, I want to eat here. That's an enough, sentence enough. I want to have my food here. But Indians will add in itself there as well. I want to have my food here itself. So that's an underlying and an emotion, like I want to have it here. Okay. You will not find that sort of expression in other languages. So ChatGPT is not able to understand that at an emotional level, or it does not have an understanding of that, but it has a statistical understanding of that, because all the Indian text it has gone through has seen the presence of the word itself over and over again statistically. So that is how it is predicting. So see the difference. ChatGPT does not understand why we use it, but ChatGPT understands that we do use it, and it also understands where we use it, because that is evident to it statistically. Okay. All right, so that's it. Even in Indian English corpora, 3.33% frequency is very high. Usually only words like the, is, to, of, and reach this. So if an Indian dialect word hits that frequency, it means it functions like a discourse particle, not vocabulary. So basically in Indian dialect, actually only basically also and all are, as basic and fundamental as is and the, to, of, and, like, whatever you want to call it, preposition or participles or whatever. I'm not very good at the grammatical technical terms, but this is the fundamental building block of the English language, how you glue the various words together. And in Indian dialect, these words are actually as frequent as that. Okay, so basically, so once again, see, I've now picked it up as a disease almost. I'm using the same basically here. So essentially here now, what we have understood is, if you want to deal with Chat GPT, and if you want to give it a prompt, use probabilistic sort of questions. Okay, use probabilistic questions, like ask questions in a manner where Chat GPT can go into it statistically, right? It can count the probability of it. It has a vector DB behind it, a statistical database, so it can actually answer the question statistically there, right? Whatever you ask, it answers statistically. So don't ask for precise answers. It can only give you a statistic related to what you're looking for. So open-ended questions are what you're looking for. Okay. So with this now, we are, through the discussion that we had, you now have a basic understanding of what is a foundational model. A foundational model is a jack of all trades, and its real strength is language understanding, the grammar understanding, the feel, the dialect, the emotion, as we just saw with ChatGPT. I can ask ChatGPT to generate um, an Indian dialect based text. Okay, let me just try to generate a short, okay, or let's say 100-word write up. Let's try to ask ChatGPT to do it. Generate a 100-word write up about the pollution situation during winters in Delhi in the Indian dialect as discussed above. Okay. And do it in a humorous style. Okay. Humorous but non-abusive. Okay. Don't get abusive here. But ChatGPT has very good filters for abuse and all. Okay. Using local slangs. Let's take a look. What does ChatGPT generate in a, so this is being generated statistically, mind you, what it understands about slangs and Indian dialect and all. And she says, so a model with English language understanding but no domain specific knowledge is foundational model. That can be a broad answer. Okay, so fundamentally, a foundational model is a very open-ended model in terms of what its capabilities are. It's not, yes, it may have specific knowledge for specific domains, but that knowledge itself will be quite open-ended. So you don't use a foundational model for domain-specific research. If you're doing that, you're going wrong there, right? So it has a very good understanding of the language structure. That's why you call it a large language model. You don't call it a large physics model or a large IT model or a large healthcare sector model. No, you call it a large language model because it has seen enough domains. It has trained itself on enough domains, enough literature to be able to understand how the language is structured. It has a statistical corpus of the language itself, but not of the domain. Okay, so just understand that. Although, because language is always about some domain, right? You cannot write anything without any subject. Okay, whatever you write will be about some domain. So it has picked up domains as well, but it's not a domain specialist. It's like a master of all trades. Okay, it's a master of all trades. It's a jack of all, I mean, I'm using the word master, so I should use the word jack. It's a jack of all trades, master of none, but it's a very good jack. Understand that. It's a very good jack of all trades, a foundational model. ChatGPT, an example. But don't consider it to be a master of any domain. Don't ask very, highly sophisticated, very precise. You cannot base your PhD research on ChatGPT. No, that's where you go wrong. ChatGPT can be your good friend. Okay, remember your friend from the school or college who was always over the internet trying to search stuff on the mobile or over the computer. He's your friend. You give him a query, he'll give you a more educated answer. But don't assume that he's the doctor or the professor. Okay. So it has generated the write up in the Indian dialect. Take a look. Every winter, Delhi turns into a full on gas chamber like situation, but in typical Delhi style. Life doesn't stop, yeah. So take a look at the stylizing of the text. From here, you will understand how the statistical structures are formed. And when you say ChatGPT does not have domain knowledge and all, it may not have a great domain knowledge, but it at least have the knowledge that domains exist. For example, this is the Indian dialect. That's the UK dialect. So I'm going to generate the UK dialect as well, the London dialect after this. So you'll see the difference there. Okay. So सुबह उठते ही, so now it is putting Hindi words, English here as well. Okay. सुबह उठते ही लगता है किसी ने स्मोक का कंबल ओढ़ दिया. Now, basically, where do you think ChatGPT is picking it up from? It's written a English sort of a thing here. सुबह उठते ही लगता है किसी ने स्मोक का कंबल उड़ा दिया. This is coming from actual text which has been crawled over from Indian websites and Indian forums and Quora and Stackshare and whatnot, from where all of these expressions are being picked up. And this is statistical, mind you. It's all statistics, all probability. Sun भी attendance लगा के चला जाता है. Now it has taken my prompt very seriously. लोग मास्क पहन के ऐसे घूमते जैसे, okay, it is written the whole thing in sort of English here. Okay, it has taken it very seriously. Now you cannot say this is nonsense. This is exact kind of stuff that somebody in Karol Bagh might be talking about right now. Okay, so I'm not going to read it through because it will divert us off our the tempo and the kind of feel that we have built. So I can put it in the chat box so you can probably read it on your own. Okay. So, but this gives you an idea that ChatGPT does not generate nonsensical answers. You just have to ask it properly. Okay. You can copy it on your own system and read it later. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask ChatGPT now regenerate the same text with the same info and rigor, but this time use the London English dialect and slangs. Okay, let's take a look. So I've told ChatGPT clearly I want the same information, the same rigor, but I want the London sort of English and the London sort of slangs, not the yar and not the jugaad and all that. Delhi wale jugaad ke raja hain. So I don't want that. I want the London slang here now. So let's take a look. Okay, let's take a look. Which one do I want? Delhi pulls a proper London style fog impression, except this one spicy, mate. You wake up, open up the curtains. This sounds more like Australian for me. The proper pea super situation with life carries on in it. Yeah, this sounds more like it. Okay. So let's take a look. Every winter, Delhi turns into a proper pea super situation. Now, pea super is a slang which probably we don't understand. It's a local London slang, which I have no idea about. I've never lived in London. Okay. But life carries on in it. Now, this I understand. I have some friends and acquaintances from London, and they use a lot of in it at the end. It's like our only and actually. Okay, in it. In it means isn't it? It's a corrupted form of isn't it, right? Like in Hindi, we say "मैं कुछ गलत कह रहा हूँ" or something like that. So Londoners tend to put this at the end of it, isn't it? Right? So they call it in it. So it has picked it up there. Mornings feel like someone's thrown a thick smog blanket over the city. The sun pops in, clocks attendance, then nips off. Now, nips off probably is not a slang that we use in Indian English. Nips off. Okay. Folks, another word for people, which we once again do not use in India a lot. Okay. Wander about in masks like extras from a sci fi flick. At the tea stalls, you'll hear mate. That's more like an Australian sort of a thing, but let it be. AQR shot past 400 again. Joggers now call their runs a risk management drill. Still, Delhi Heights are champions of Jugaad. So this word is used in London as well. Okay, it is understood there. Herbal brews, air purifiers, and moaning cheerfully while not missing their cheeky. Okay, cheeky is another slang which is very London. Pollution's nuisance, yet their swagger. Another London word here. Survival spirit remain properly unshaken. Mate, once again is the version of yar in Australia and Britain. Okay, they use a lot of mate there. So essentially speaking, what you see in front of you is that ChatGPT will generate probabilistic answers for you, but let it, be open-ended and depend more on its statistical knowledge of text and all. Do not think of it as a very highly educated or knowledgeable sort of expert who can give you the right answer. No, it is you who has to finally decide. But whenever you ask ChatGPT a question, imagine it knows, as I told you, the original model was trained on 400 500 billion words. Right now what we are using chat GPT-5, I think it is already trained, probably trained on more than 10 trillion words. 10 trillion words. Okay, that's a huge amount of text from English language and other languages as well. Chat GPT can generate this in Devanagari. So let me ask this here. Okay, now regenerate the text. I'm not going to read this, but I'm going to show you the capability of text ChatGPT. And now regenerate the text in Devanagari script and proper Hindi language minus the slangs of any kind. Okay, let's take a look. Some sort of a language which might be used in Delhi University or somewhere. So now it is generating this in the proper Devanagari script. So our question here, how many of you have generated responses from ChatGPT, not in the Hindi mode, in the English mode itself, but in Hindi script? Have you done that before? So now you see the capability of ChatGPT, right? Okay, Ashish says yes, Harish says yes. इट इज प्रॉपर हिंदी. हर वर्ष सर्दियों के दौरान दिल्ली में प्रदूषण की स्थिति अत्यंत गंभीर हो जाती है. नो स्लैंग्स हियर. प्रातःकाल वातावरण में घना धुंध और स्मॉग छाया रहता है जिससे सूर्य का प्रकाश भी. सो व्हाट्स हैपनिंग हियर. So basically, it has the statistical model for almost all the major languages of the world. Here I can generate the same in French, Russian, German, Italian, Portuguese, Spanish, any language that you want, Japanese, Chinese, and will do a very good job of it because it understands those languages statistically. It understands the sentiment of your passage statistically, the feel of it statistically, and so on and so forth. So essentially speaking, ChatGPT is looking at the entire corpus of human knowledge base, which is continuously being generated over and over again, statistically. Okay, what is the most probable words that can occur? The more it trains itself, the better it gets. Okay, the more it trains itself, I mean, it doesn't train itself, we train it. Okay, OpenAI trains it. So the more OpenAI trains it, the more precise it gets. The more precise it gets. Okay, and we're going to talk about the entire architecture of how this is generated in future sessions. This is called a mechanism called next token generation. So when you give a prompt to ChatGPT, it decides what should be the first word with which I should start the answer. That first word for ChatGPT is a very high stakes bet. Okay, it's a very high stakes bet. The first word, remember what I'm saying. I'm going to discuss that in great detail in the future, and we're going to also going to take a break now very shortly. So it's a very high stake bet. It's like starting a painting on a blank paper. If any of you have an artistic bent of mind, music, painting, or anything, you know what I mean. When you are starting a painting, that's the most risky. I mean, that's where you are most scared and you really fear like what's happening, because that's a blank paper and you have a pencil and you want to make the right first move. ChatGPT also faces a similar situation. The first word it chooses, it is really, really, really taxing itself to choose that first word. Please understand what I'm saying. I'm going to discuss this technically in the future sessions. The first word is the most difficult choice that ChatGPT makes, the first word from where it starts the answer. Okay. And then it becomes easier for ChatGPT to generate, the first, as it moves forward, it becomes easier and easier for it. So once it has generated the second word, the third word is easier to generate because already there's a context. Har varsh sardiyon. If it has already generated that much, now it knows statistically that the next word would be k or ka or something like that. So the problem is getting easier for it. So that is how next token generation works. You generate the probability of what the next token, and it becomes easier and easier as you move forward. This is called self attention, which is a proper technical thing that we'll discuss in the future. Self attention. Okay. Paying attention to what you are saying and looking at what you've already said. This is how humans speak as well. Those who speak intelligently, they keep a track of what they are saying, and they can. So please confirm if you can identify this skill in others and yourself as well. There are some people who can change the tone and direction of their speech by gauging the direction in which the conversation is going. Can you identify that skill within yourself and in other people? When you see a person who was going to say one thing, but he anticipated that if he goes into that direction, the conversation will go into another direction and maybe it will not go into his favor. So he changes the course of the conversation by changing the words and the tone and the overall idea of the conversation. Can you identify that skill in yourself and in others? Kids do it a lot. Okay, kids do it a lot, but kids are not very good at it. So you can catch them. But adults do it, they have perfected it. So these kids will become adults, right? So politicians, correct. Not just politicians, everybody's a politician. Lawyers, everybody's a politician. Everybody's a politician. But you can identify people with better, skill level. So you cannot catch them. So if you say, "Oh, you were going to say that thing," and you now said, if a person is very good at that skill, you won't be able to catch him because he'll do it so subtly. And he will speak slowly. Okay, he'll speak slowly. He'll gauge your reaction. He'll try it in one way, and then he'll gauge your reaction, and then he'll try to steer it in another way depending upon how your reaction. So basically, ChatGPT does the same thing, but of course, it cannot look at you. It can only look at the text that it has already generated. This is called self-attention, right? So as it moves forward, it becomes more and more confident, right? It's like when you start giving an answer and when you find yourself speaking more and more confidently, you become more and more confident. It's like, your boss asking a question, or you giving a presentation, or you going onto the stage, for example. I don't know how many of you have gone onto a stage. Have you ever gone into a stage and spoken to 5, 10, 1,500 people? Anywhere, college, school, office? Any one of you? You can say no. Amit says, what technologies you're using to translate this information into different languages like French, Spanish, or is it just based on data uploaded or trained upon? Correct, Amit. It's not using any technology. It is using the same statistical patterns. It has ChatGPT has been trained on multiple languages, and it has statistical database from all those languages. So when you ask it to translate something, it does not understand what you are asking to translate. It simply generates a statistical neighbor of that same sentence in another language. So it has that level of statistical correlation across world languages, right? So OpenAI is really doing a great job there. So Ashish says no. So if none of you have ever been onto a stage for public speaking, let me tell you, because I'm a corporate trainer myself. Okay, Harish says no, no, gone once, but didn't do well. Okay. So essentially speaking, but doesn't matter, give it a try again. I am a corporate trainer, I'm a public speaker, and I have my YouTube channel as well. I have delivered classroom trainings, corporate room trainings. Been on the stage multiple times. So I'll tell you how it happens. When you're going onto the stage, that's the most nervous period for you. I mean, that level of nervousness that you feel is up to you, but relatively speaking, for the whole session, the most nervous that you're in the beginning. And that nervousness peaks when you have the microphone in your hand, the mic in your hand, and you're going to utter the first word. Okay. So the same nervousness and the same peak tension is for ChatGPT as well when it is going to utter the first word or generate the first word. After that, once the presenter, the person on the stage, the public speaker has uttered a few sentences, it's like playing cricket. Once the batsman is off the mark, has moved beyond zero, he has taken a single or anything, he has scored a couple of runs, maybe he has scored a four, then he gets into his flow, right? And same goes for ChatGPT. The more context it generates, the better its confidence level becomes, and more the answer starts becoming more tight and precise, right? So this is not happening randomly. This is happening properly. This is called self-attention. Okay, we're going to discuss that in the sessions to come. So at this point, through our experimentation with ChatGPT prompts and all, we are gaining a lot of understanding of how ChatGPT works. So we'll take a break at this point. Okay, this will be a slightly longer break, about 20 minutes break. You can, grab some refreshments, freshen up. And once we come back, we're going to take this discussion forward. Today, I'm also going to introduce you to the IT architecture because that is at the back of all of this. And you need to understand that as well if you want to deploy your, AI-based solutions properly. So let's take a break. And once we come back, we will continue this also, but I will also open a parallel discussion about the IT architecture. Okay, how the IT industry actually works and is structured. Let's take a break and then we're going to do all of this. All right, so please confirm if you're able to hear my voice and see the screen so that we may continue our discussion. Okay. So let's come over here now, and I'm gonna start a discussion which will continue for many future sessions on and off parallelly. Okay, because it's essential for all of you to learn. Okay, so let's take a look at here this now. Okay, we are all interacting right now, and we are all using AI and ML tools in our life and career. We are here to learn, and all these things that we are doing our daily life. We use so many apps, websites, web apps, and so on and so forth. We are doing it using the web. Okay, using the web. So, can you tell me? Let me ask this question here. What, according to you, is the web? Okay, this is the discussion that we're going to start now, because you have to understand the underlying layers of AI before you can actually fully comprehend how it functions and how to leverage it properly. We use the web. First of all, have you heard that term? And do you know what it is? Use the web. Harish says worldwide network where machines talk to each other. Okay, I'll take that as an answer. Through internet. Okay, worldwide network where machines talk to each other through internet. Okay, that's a very good answer from a non-technical perspective. Other people? Web is a combination of pages. Okay, so you have some technical idea that it's about HTML pages. Okay, so that's a more technical answer. So web is a combination of pages. So according to you, web is the entirety of all the HTML pages across the world. Okay. Other answers, because you use web every day, whether you know it or not, from morning till evening. Collection of websites, information on internet spread widely across the world. Okay. So you understand the fact that web is either a collection of resources over the internet as web pages and all, and it's also a mechanism of information sharing across the internet, spread widely across the world. Harish says only those pages that are exposed to internet. Okay, Harish says only those pages that are exposed to internet. Okay, so you have some basic understanding, and we're going to take that basic understanding and we're going to expand upon it. Okay, let's go ahead and expand upon it. So essentially speaking, we are trying to lay our foundation of understanding of how IT systems work. So when I say web, it is the foundation of what you call as the IT industry. Okay. How many of you looked at web that way? Please confirm. Have you ever thought that the web that you're talking about is the very foundation upon which the IT industry functions? You all know what the IT industry is, right? The global IT industry. Even AI ML is part of the IT industry. So you can say yes or no. If you ever had the slightest idea, you can say yes, that web is the very foundation upon which the IT industry is built. You have some idea of the web, you're saying it's a collection of websites, it's how information is shared. But did you have an idea that it's a very foundation of the IT industry? The IT industry is founded on the web. If no web, no IT industry, as at least the way it has gone in the past few decades. Okay. So a couple of you, okay. Ashish says, as of now, yes. Okay. Amit says, I use it every day to search and research purposes. So yeah, IT industry is dependent on web. So Amit, IT industry is not dependent on web. IT industry was born because of the web. That's what I'm saying. It's not dependent on the web. The IT industry was born from the web. Born. I'm using the word born. No web, no IT industry. And we're also going to differentiate it from the general internet. What is the difference between internet and the web? Right? Is the internet same as the web, or internet is different from the web? What is it? Okay, so we're going to lay the foundational understanding of all of this, because this is exactly this knowledge is exactly needed for you in the future sessions as we'll move forward, to properly deploy AI and to properly understand how AI is being used. In fact, even when you use Chat GPT or any other AI tool right now, you're using it over the web. No web, no access. No web, no IT industry. No web, a lot of things will go away from our world. Okay. Dr. Pawan says non-web IT industry also exists like ATM machine. See, ATM machine or a POS where you swipe your card, they're all endpoints, mind you. They're all endpoints. Okay, they are at the endpoints where the user machine interaction takes place. But the data from the ATM machine, the data from where the transaction is authenticated, whether you're the right person, your PIN for the debit card, and so on and so forth, all of that is verified and transacted over the web. So when you say non-web IT industry also exists like ATM machine cannot function without internet connection, without the web. So that is what you're here to learn now. Okay. Web in some form or the other is all across the IT industry in whatever form. Okay. If you want to say non-web IT industry also exists, well, IT, the word IT itself is information technology, information. And the real information explosion over the internet happened when the web was born. So when you say non-web IT industry, well, you are able to say that because probably you currently do not have the understanding of how the ATM interacts with the rest of the banking network. Okay, the customer data actually is there in the bank server, and the ATM machine authenticates the customer, the debit card, the PIN. The account is debited and credited in the bank's servers, not in the ATM machine. ATM machine is only a transaction initiator, it's the endpoint. The actual data is happening somewhere in the bank server, and that transaction is happening over the web. So we'll talk about it. Ashish says, I have a doubt if an app does not have access to internet, I mean desktop apps, is it like on device? If I have a doubt if an app does not have access to internet. So what is the doubt? I didn't get it. Okay, I didn't get it. If an app does not have access to internet, if an app does not have access to internet, it will not be able to. It will be part of the IT industry. Okay, that's an interesting question. See, there are two industries here which are working in tandem. This is a very good question you have asked, because now I can answer that in a way where you'll be able to understand it properly. So I'm going to write two words here: web/IT industry. Let's write it like this. Okay. And then there is the software industry. Okay. And then there is one more industry, which is computer science industry or computers industry. Let's call it this way: computer industry. Can you tell me the difference between these three? Okay, very good discussion is going to happen, which will lay your understanding, because many of you are not from the computer science background, or you're working with the IT industry, but you may not have the full understanding of how it is. Okay. So Harish says computer industry is like hardware, software industry is programming, and okay. So okay, Harish has an idea here. Computer industry is like the hardware, software industry is the programming, and web IT industry. Okay, so let me make this question a bit more easier for you to attempt. I'm not saying you may be able to answer it correctly, but let me make it easier for you to attempt. Can you tell me the broad decades in which these three industries were born? But I can give you an idea. This is the parent industry, which is pretty obvious. This is the parent industry, the computer industry, from which the sub industry was born, which is the software industry. And from the software industry was born the IT industry. Okay, I'm giving you this much information here. Can you guess the decades in which they were born in the world as commercial industries where people are employed, paid salaries, companies are formed, products are being developed? Can you take a guess? When I say decades, it's like 2020, 2010, 2000, 1990, 1960, 1970, 1980. Just take a guess. Because when you'll take a guess, you'll be forced to think from your existing knowledge base, just like ChatGPT. You're also a pre-trained person. You have heard so many things in your entire life, career. So let's generate an answer on the basis of that. So Harish says in India, computers came in around 80s. So are you saying that computer industry in India was born in 80s or software industry or IT industry? Which one? And I'm not asking about India. I'm asking about the world because India has been slightly late to adopt these technologies. So India is not a benchmark. Okay, let's talk about US and Europe and other countries. Take a guess. Don't be afraid to take a guess. Okay, computer industry. I've told you is the parent industry from where software industry emerged, and from software industry emerged the web and the IT industry. Ashish said early 60s computers were born, 70s and early 80s software industry. After mid 80s it is web. Okay, that's one good answer. Okay, other people as well. Harish says not sure, but IBM existed for a long time. So take a shot. Because when you'll be forced to answer here, compel, you will pull up on your data which you already know. You'll put on some references, some ideas. Harish says 30s, so you are putting 30s for the computer industry. Okay, fair enough, fair answer. Other people try to attempt this. That will force you to go into your existing knowledge base. Don't go to Google or ChatGPT as of now because that will ruin the game. I'm challenging your own foundational model. You're inside your minds. What do you know about this particular industry? Let's see what you are pre-trained on, your own knowledge base. Take a guess. At least a couple of more answers would be good before I share the answer with you. Okay. All right. So Dr. Pawan can make an attempt. Let's see. Who all do we have? Dilip, Harish, Mayank, Amit. Okay. So waiting for your responses. Okay. So I'll start from the top here, from the computer science industry. So computer science industry basically is anything to do with computers, whether it is hardware, software. Okay, all of that was actually one thing. So hardware, software, okay, and any other thing related to computers is the general computer science industry, and it was born in the 1950s. Okay, 1950s. This is after the Second World War. A lot of companies were born in the 1950s. So I can write 1950s and 60s. That would be a more precise answer. Okay. Late 50s, early 60s, something like that. Okay. Amit says computer was designed early 60s, I believe, to complete some basic calculation. Later around 90s, app software came into picture. And later, the manage all these things, IT industries came into business. Okay, yes, we're going to talk about that. So I never saw a computer till 1986. Okay, that's great. And so this discussion is going to be quite a revelation for you. 1986 is already the later stage of the computer science industry. It's not the early age. Okay. So the early age is 1950s and 60s when this is immediately after the Second World War. So during the Second World War, a lot of computers were built. So by early 50s, you did not have the IC technology which you today have. You must have seen the IC, right? Your motherboard, basically. So you know what a motherboard is. Your phone has a motherboard, your laptop has a motherboard. So the ICs, the small chips that you see, the black chips that are soldered onto your motherboard, they were not there in the early 50s. That technology was not there. Printed ICs, printed chips, transistors were not there. Other technologies were there. Mechanical computers were there. Diodes, anodes were there, like your tube lights. So a computer was like hundreds and thousands of tube lights connected, tube light like or bulb like structures, which you called as anodes and diodes. Okay, diodes, triodes, anodes, and such things. They used to comprise your computers in the late 40s and early 50s. So by early 50s or mid 50s, the IC printing technology, the chips and all started coming in. The research was already going on. So when they, what they did, what the chip did was it reduced the size of the computers. So earlier the computers were very big. A small, laptop that you have today, the same capacity, capability, if you wanted to build a computer that way, you would have to build a 4 or 5 story building. Okay, maybe 1,000 square meters. Okay, that huge amount of, the size of the computers, the technology, the hardware technology you were using was of very big form factor. And computation was very expensive as well. It was time consuming, it was heat generating, it used to crash a lot, bulbs used to fuse and all. So it was very, I would say, not a very robust technology, not very. And all the experiments were going on only in a few places, some academies, some academics, yeah, academic areas, research institutes, universities, government institutes, and so on and so forth. So it was pretty limited, but the industry was already formed. And at that point of time, there was no differentiation between hardware and software. For example, take an example of a calculator. Have you ever asked yourself, I don't know how many of you have used scientific calculators. They are used in engineering colleges. They are mandatory in engineering colleges. I don't know about other fields of study. Maybe chartered accountants also have it. So you never asked the question about a calculator, whether it has a software or, can I update the software? Have you ever asked that about a calculator? Quick question, just to reaffirm this. You never ask the question whether a calculator has a separate. Okay, so you never thought of a calculator having a software, right? A calculator is a calculator. You can hold it in your hand, you can press the buttons, and it'll give you the answer. So the early computers were like that. You never thought like what is the hardware, what is the software. They were built primarily for one or two single tasks. Okay, and you never asked the question, can I update it, upgrade it, can I change its functionality? No, it was pretty dedicated for the purpose that it was built. That is how early computers look like. I can probably show you a picture, but I'll leave that job to you. You can check it out later. You can ask Google or ChatGPT. Google better. You can write how did the early computers in 1950s and 60s look like. Google will give you a result. These days Google is also using AI. If you have checked out, it first gives you a AI based summary, and then a GPT summary, and then it goes you and gives you the search results. So essentially speaking, the early computers were like calculator. There was no differentiation between hardware and software. It was just one thing done, built to do one thing. And what was that thing? It was usually scientific calculation. And you would be surprised that the early computers were built exactly for the stuff that we are doing now in 2026, AI and ML. Okay, not exactly the same kind of AI and ML that we use today, but the statistical modeling and probabilistic sort of work and statistics and empirical stuff and all which we are doing today. Okay, the early computers were not used so much for hobbies, stuff, entertainment, media production, and information sharing and all. No, they were used for scientific calculations, the kind of calculations that now we are doing. Each one of us now here to learn are here, all of you are here to learn about scientific calculations, which lie at the heart of your AI and ML. Okay, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, that was the domain of hardcore mathematicians and stuff like that. Today, everyone, ordinary people, because they are undergoing AI and ML courses, are learning about statistics, probability, and statistical modeling, operations research, and all. You'll at least every person who has gone some course on AI ML in the past few months or will undergo will have that understanding. They were hardcore mathematical fields where people used to do PhD and all. Okay. So computers are used for that, only for scientific calculations. Okay. In about 2 decades' time, by 1969, computers were small enough to actually be, because the ICs of transistors and chips and motherboard that you see, they were able to sell these computers to other companies and homes. And also the first smallest computer that somebody could buy and put in his home was like this PDP-1. Take a look at this. This is one of the earliest computers that you could buy and put inside your home. Okay, look like this. This whole thing is a computer in multiple parts: the VDU, the CPU, some other panel here, and then take a look at this. This whole thing is a computer. The magnetic tapes, this is where the applications are deployed. This is your monitor. This is everything that you see here in the back. This is all software. Okay, and some other stuff here. So basically, this whole thing was a computer in the late 60s and early 70s that you could buy, and you had people like this working on it, scientists, basically. Okay, so by this time you could send computers to people, sell computers to people, and they were small enough. And the thing was that by this time, people realize that computers can be made to do many more things. Also, if a person bought a computer, he would like to have better ROI on that, because a person can use the computer for many different purposes in comparison to a university which is using it only for research. So that idea was already being worked upon, and the industry said, if somebody has bought a computer, can we not later on send another application or something to reprogram that computer to do something else? Please understand the problem. Till then, computers were like a calculator, but by 860s, the computer industry started asking the question, can we reprogram the same computer? So they said, where does the program live in the computer? Earlier program used to live entirely within the computer box itself, as you want to call it. But later on, they started, realizing that we can separate that part out and replace it. Okay, so they started working on this idea. If we can replace the part where the software actually lives, or where the application actually lives, where the code actually lives, we can replace that code and make the same machine do something else. So these boxes that you see behind in this picture, these are magnetic tapes. This is how software is installed initially. Okay, magnetic tapes software. Okay, so take a look at this. So today, when you download a software, you just go to a website and download it and you install it on your machine. If you were in early 70s, if you wanted to install software, you have to order software like this. Software would come to your home in a truck. Okay, so you'll have an Amazon like 1 ton sort of this sort of carrier or trailer which comes to your home when your Amazon packages get delivered, right? So software used to come like that in huge sort of boxes like this, and you needed special software delivery deployment engineers to come to your home and install it, like you get your air conditions installed these days. That was the early 70s, right? But people realized that hardware is separate from software. That means we can reprogram the computer. So computer as a hardware, as the machine, is sold separately, and the application on top of it is sold separately. So software is sold separately for the first time in the late 60s and early 70s. Okay, and by 1979, the first real big money making application was sold, which was VisiCalc, and it made millions of dollars. It was a very simple Excel like application, just like your Microsoft Excel. It was a very simple accounting application, an Excel like application, VisiCalc. In the late 1970s, it was deployed, and it only took a few $1,000s for deployment, I mean, for development, and the application actually made millions of dollars in sale. And that opened up the lucrative field of software, which was already going on for a decade, since early 70s and 80s. But VisiCal proved that this can emerge as an industry in itself. So that is late 70s, early 80s. So let's write it down here. Okay, so software industry, what you call as the software industry, emerged almost 2 decades later, 1970s, 80s. Okay, 1970s and 80s. So it emerged almost 2 decades later. Okay, VisiCalc was one of the prime examples. So in 1970, around 1975, Apple company was born. Around the same time, Microsoft was born. So these are the companies which you attribute to, towards personal computing, Microsoft and Apple. And they were born in 1970s. So 1979, VisiCalc, which is a separate company, they produced this software. So early 80s, the software industry was already established. By mid 80s, it was totally established software industry that software can be sold separately. You buy a computer once, but you buy software over and over again. That is the birth of the software industry, 70s and 80s. By mid 80s, you also had something called as the open source, free and open source software movement. I'm introducing these terms to you because they will become very important as we move forward. Free and open source software movement. This was a movement by mid 80s where a lot of computer programmers were tired working for companies like Microsoft and others, which felt that once the developer develops the code, the company owns it, and not the customer, not the developer has any right over the code that's written, right? Okay. So that's called proprietary software. So the in opposition to free and open source software, the original model of software was proprietary software. Anybody who builds any piece of software, so please don't worry about these spellings here because I'm not going to fix them. Proprietary software. Okay. So proprietary software is, let's say I'm Microsoft. I built a piece of software and I'm selling it to you for $100. And I got it developed by a bunch of developers and I paid them, let's say, $5,000. So once those $5,000 payment is made, I take all the software from them and I now am the owner of all that software. Those developers cannot use it anywhere. They cannot further develop it without my permission. And the users who are getting the software for $100 will also not get access to the code inside that software. So that's called proprietary software. So imagine as a developer, you build something very good and powerful. You want to develop it, you want to work upon it, but the company doesn't want you to develop and work upon it. It has stopped development on it. If you try and continue development or you publish or produce that software somewhere else in a developed form or a further evolved form, you will face a legal action from that company. And Microsoft in its early days and even today is very aggressive in that posture, specifically Microsoft. And there are a lot of other companies which follow the same spirit. Proprietary software. This is our software now. Okay, not the user, not the developer who developed it, not the user who uses it has any right over the code and understanding how it works, nor have they any access to develop it further or make it more powerful with time. That is the idea of proprietary software. That's how the industry started from. But then by mid 80s, already a union and a community of developers came around in 10-15 years and they said, we have to stop this. We have to stop this because we are building so much powerful software as developers, but none of that is reaching the end customers. They are modifying it, they are making it weaker, they are making it looser for various reasons, economic business reasons, which probably we can go into, but won't be so relevant. You're all working in the industry, so you know why all those things happen. You don't want to give a very high quality product to your customer, right? So these developers were totally dedicated to the field of software development and they created their own free and open source software movement, which was born in it was born in the mid 80s. So take a look at this free and open source software movement. Okay, sometimes also called just open source or free software. So this was born in the mid 80s. It seems pretty simple, but all the explosion in the industry that you have seen in the past few decades has happened because of the spirit of free and open source software, not because of proprietary software, right? So 80s, mid 80s is that time. Now, by this time in the mid 80s, there are two things. There is no internet. So when you see this line here, let me draw a line here, very clear line. So by the time this has already happened, there is no web. I mean, there is no internet, there is no web, and there is no IT industry. Okay, there is no internet, there is no web, there is no IT industry by the mid 80s. So Dr. Pawan here said he saw a a computer for the first time in 86. That's around the same time when internet was born. So if you saw a computer in 86, you were probably seeing something from the software industry where hardware was sold separately, software was sold separately, but there was no internet. Internet was born precisely in the mid 80s and it matured by late 80s. Okay, it matured by late 80s, 89, 88, something like that. In India, it came around 90s, 88, 89, 90, and so forth. Initially to Mumbai, and then from there from to the rest of the country. So essentially speaking, by the mid 80s, there was no internet or web or IT industry or anything. But something changed in the early 90s. Okay. In 1991, okay, I used internet first time in 1996, correct. By 94, 96, internet was available easily, relatively easier. Okay, but um, it had come to India by late 80s and 90s. So some government offices and all. BSNL was already formed, I think, somewhere in the early 90s, and VSNL, and they already had laid a line for internet, which was reaching Mumbai. Okay. So some offices in Mumbai and some areas in Mumbai, government offices in Mumbai were already using internet by early 90s. Okay, so something happened in 1991, okay, big, which was born out of this entire thing, free and open source software. So free and open source software means that whatever software is developed and published and released as free and open source, anybody can improve it, anybody can make it better, anybody has access to it. And a group of developers, if they come around, they can deploy an improved version of it. Okay, they can deploy an improved version of it and other people can benefit from that. So it's not a closed sort of software. Okay, it's a very open software, right? And because of this, a lot of people started collaborating. So collaborative sort of efforts started happening here. Okay, because of this, collaboration started happening. Earlier it was just 5 developers working in one company, 10 developers working somewhere else. They cannot share any code, otherwise they'll face legal action. But now you could actually gather together and generate free and open source software. But there was not a lot of money involved here, because this software was not being developed under any company. So they were doing it from their own garages, their own home offices, from their own bedrooms and studies and so on and so forth. But this was becoming a major sort of force. So in 1991, it culminated in two things. Okay, number one, the Linux kernel, which is an open source operating system, which I'm using right now, Ubuntu. Okay, I'm using Ubuntu right now. So the Ubuntu is a flavor of Linux, which was born in 1991 as free and open source software and was in direct competition with Windows, because Windows at that time was the proprietary software, proprietary operating system of choice, which Microsoft was aggressively pushing. Okay, Microsoft was aggressively pushing. It was trying to make a deal with all the major personal computer manufacturers, Microsoft, Bill Gates, that if you sell a computer, you better sell it with Windows on it. Otherwise, they'll try to attack your company. Now, this is absolutely true. If you go and find out, read more about the Microsoft's business strategy, aggressive business strategy. So they wanted, if somebody buys a personal computer, it should have the Windows operating system on it, because operating system is one of the most important applications, the first application that you install on any computer. Many of you must have bought a laptop or a desktop, and you know that many times laptops come without operating systems. So that is useless. You need to install an operating system, and that's why Bill Gates and Microsoft saw an opportunity there, and they said, if we cannot manufacture personal computers, and that was never their domain. Okay. Apple was creating personal computers, Macintosh. And Apple is a leader in hardware software combination domain for personal use even today. Okay. iPhones, iPad, and so many other things, basically. So Apple was a full company. It was a full personal computing company, hardware, software, both. Whereas Microsoft was only focusing primarily on generic software, not on hardware. So it was forcing Windows down users' throat. And as a response to that, because operating system is the fundamental application, if you control the operating system, if your company controls the operating system, it knows everything about the user. It can gather everything about the user. And this such allegations are made against Windows even today, that it tries to spy upon your data and it tries to send certain information back to its server. So that happens, the same kind of allegations that you face with Chinese sort of CCTV things and all. So operating system is a very key piece of application. So this free and open source software, so you can call them the rebels of the IT industry, the powerful rebellion. Okay. And they said we need to launch a separate operating system which can compete with Windows, which is free. Number one, anybody can download it from the internet for free, use it for free, and modify it for free. And we're going to create an entire community which is just going to develop this as an alternative. And we are not going to make any money out of it. Think about it. We are not, and that's a core philosophy. We are not going to make any money from it. We are doing it for ourselves. Okay. We are doing it for ourselves and for the rest of us. So we're not going to make any money out of it. So they created the Linux operating system in 1991. They launched it, and it was created by a college graduate in Northern Europe, one of the Nordic countries, Sweden or something. Okay, Linus Torvalds. He was, I think, from Finland, and he was a college graduate back then. And he created a very simple operating system, and the community, free and open source community, picked it up from there. And today, you know what Linux is. 90% plus of your servers in the world are running on Linux. Please confirm if you acknowledge this figure. Let me make it very clear for you. Um, Swiggy, Zomato, Zerodha, Make My Trip, IRCTC, any website, any web app that you talk about, there is a 90% probability or more that it is working on a Linux server. Please confirm if you acknowledge this figure. Okay, this is a very important figure. Okay, so yes, just remember this fact. When you will work on the cloud, AWS or any other cloud, or when you use the IT systems today, any app that you're using, in fact, the Zoom that we are using right now, there's a very high probability that Zoom internally, where it is routing our data, in Zoom servers in the US and across the world, they are using Linux servers, because 90% or more of servers in the world are running on Linux. Why? Because Linux is open source and it is not owned by anyone, right? It is a community which is developing it, and it's absolutely trust based. You can look into the code that you're deploying, so you know that it's not being spied upon or being taken. You cannot trust Microsoft for that. I thought it is more secure. That is why security is one of the aspects. Okay, openness is the main reason. Okay, and being license free and all that is another reason, but openness is the first reason. You know what you're using, how it is functioning, right? Security, of course, is another aspect. Security is a direct implication of openness, because you know what you're using, so you feel more secure, right? With Microsoft, you don't know what you're using, right? You don't know what the code is inside, like, and what they are doing exactly. When you click a button, what exactly is happening inside, we don't know. Even I, as a developer, don't know, right? Nobody knows because they hide it. So essentially speaking, companies trust Linux more than proprietary software to deploy their own servers, and that's the truth. So that happened in 1991, and one more thing happened in 1991, which was path breaking, and it was the birth of the web stack, which you today know as the web or the World Wide Web, and so on and so forth. But still, by 1991, the IT industry was not born. The IT industry was not born even by 1991. So by 1991, we had Linux and we had the web stack as the new things, the new cool things. But they were still born as hobby projects. So let me write it down here. Both these were hobby projects initially. Okay, they were powerful alternatives, but just as an idea, just as ChatGPT was in 2022, because it was answering from pre-trained data. It could not answer you new things. It could not generate images for you. So it was a hobby project basically. Now ChatGPT is making more sense. Cloud Cowork and all agentic based workspaces are now, it has exploded. But in 2022, just like in 1991, Linux and WebStack were hobby projects. Okay, cool. Okay, but what do we do with it? Not much. So this is where our story of the web and IT industry begins from 1991. So the IT industry was born in the 90s. Okay. So what is IT industry really? What is the IT industry really? Large scale adoption of computers. Please understand what I'm saying. What is the IT industry really? Large scale adoption of computers for business automation. Okay, large scale adoption of computers for business automation. Okay, this is exactly what the IT industry is: large scale adoption of computers for business. Till this time, computer was still a purview of hobbies and geeks and academies and governments and so on and so forth. But by mid 90s and late 90s, more specifically by late 90s, you saw the birth of IT industry, which is nothing but large scale, or in fact, I can write very large scale adoption of computers for business automation, all sorts of business automation, sales, marketing, accounting, manufacturing, decision support systems, everything that you have as a business operation, you can automate it. Okay, you can automate it according to using the this particular thing which you call as the web stack. Okay, so I conclude today's discussion here. I've introduced you to a lot of new concepts today which we will build on tomorrow's session. So tomorrow we will start seeing from 90s onwards how exactly this web stack was formed and where we are today in 2026. It's the same stack, mind you, which has evolved and is continuing to evolve even in 2026. Everything that you see around today, Swiggy, Zomato, Zerodha, Make My Trip, Netflix, Amazon Prime, anything, Zoom, Google Meet, Facebook, LinkedIn, every single thing that you see today was born from this web stack, which was born in 91. Right? So we're going to go on that journey tomorrow. We're going to see the architecture of how applications are built, because Dr. Pawan today said that ATM is probably not using the web stack. So by tomorrow's session, and as we move forward in that discussion, it will be absolutely clear to you that most of everything that you use today in our daily lives is actually based on the web stack. Because at some point of time, it goes onto a server and the server is hosted over the web. And we're going to see that architecture tomorrow. ATMs, POS machines, your smartphone, they're all endpoints for interaction. They're taking the user input. But where is that user input eventually processed? It's processed inside some server, and that server is operating on the web layer. So these might seem like terms to you right now or ideas, but by tomorrow's session, it will be clear to you how this entire thing functions, component by component. Okay, so we're going to spend that time because it's very important for you to understand when you open Chat GPT here and when you are writing a prompt here, what is happening, how many components are actually moving from the point where you actually wrote a prompt here in your browser. Okay, you wrote some text here, clicked on enter, and then what all happened from that point until the point this text was entirely generated in front of you. How many different entities were involved? Where is this data generated from? Because you know that's not getting generated on your own machine. So it's getting generated somewhere else. Where is that somewhere else? And what all parts are moving? Because AI is going to live everywhere throughout this entire chain of things. Okay, Dr. Bhavan, I used to think AI was born in 2020, but one of MCQ says AI was born in 50s. Well, I told you today itself and last weekend also, I think I told it. I don't remember which session I told you that all these things which AI and ML is based on, those fields were born in the 50s itself. And right now, I also told you that the earliest use of computers was for statistical and empirical and scientific and mathematical research, which is the same area where AI and ML belong to. If you remember our first weekend's discussion, you'll remember I was talking about so much about statistical modeling and so on and so forth. You remember all this discussion, right? This is precisely the earliest uses of computers. All of this. I think I discussed this on last Sunday. Okay, the entire statistical kind of research was the purview of computers in the 50s. So, in a way, yes, it's correct. You cannot say AI was born in the 50s, but the foundational science and mathematics behind what you have AI today was definitely the field of area that was worked upon by computers in the 50s. Absolutely. Okay, not an issue there. We're all busy people, working people, so sometimes it's not possible to attend all the sessions. But I hope you'll be able to get access to the class recording because we discussed a lot of interesting things on that day. So kindly go through that if possible. Okay. Yeah, that would be great. Okay. So I conclude today's session here. We got 5 more minutes. If you have any questions, any queries, any comments, anything that you would like to discuss, I'm still here. Okay. And we'll continue this discussion in tomorrow's session where I'll take you through the entire architecture and the structure of what you call as the IT industry and the web stack. Okay. Baby steps. Yes, very important. Okay. Baby steps are very important because if you don't take baby steps in a new field, you will never grow up. If you're never a baby, you'll never grow up. Right? So you can go an entire course, but if you haven't started it from first principles, by the end of the course, the only thing that you'll remember is some jargons, RAG, embeddings, vectors, GPT, LLM, but you will have very limited understanding of what exactly that means. That's why baby steps are very important. Okay, we're gonna build on knowledge layer by layer by layer. Like you paint your house, first coat, second coat, third coat, fourth coat, and I mean, you don't make a fourth coat, but if you make a fourth coat, it will be really nice. Okay. So we're going to do it layer by layer by layer by layer. And we are going to move across layers of abstraction so that we know at every layer what's happening. Okay. At least at a level of understanding, even if we don't go very deeply technical on that. At least conceptually, you should understand what's happening there. Thank you, Harish, for attending the session. And I really appreciate the interaction that's happening. The more interactive the session is, okay, please teach of NVIDIA like you taught AWS today. See, NVIDIA is a company that makes chips and more importantly, graphics cards. People seem to talk of NVIDIA. So I have a question, Dr. Pawan. Have you ever played PC games on computers? Never in your entire life have you played games on on a computer. Your kids maybe play computers games. Even your kids don't play. Okay. All right. So have you seen anyone playing games on computers? Have you ever seen some video or something? And do you feel today's games are very realistic? I mean, graphically at least. All right. So that was not the case about 2 decades ago. Games were very basic, like Tetris, Snakes and Ladders, Mario, and all those sort of things. Very basic. But these days you have very high realism in games. All right. Very realistic 3D worlds and all, Call of Duty and whatnot. So that 3D realism that you see, that is result of very fast and very high amount of mathematical computations. The way you can generate that view, that's a very large amount and a very fast computation, mathematical computations that you have to do, and only then you can generate that realistic world. And NVIDIA is a company which in the last 2 decades has focused heavily on that field only. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So your normal computing, yes, games realism is totally mathematical computation, totally 100% mathematical computation, frame by frame. When you look in one direction and you change your direction, a new view is generated. There's a whole mathematical computation behind it. Okay. And there is something called OpenGL, I'm sorry, not OpenGPL, um, which you can go around and check it out. So basically, NVIDIA is a company which has focused only on the hardware for that realistic that mathematical computation to generate a realistic sort of view. And eventually, what happened was that mathematical calculation that is used to generate the very realistic 3D graphics is the same kind of mathematics that is used in AI and ML as well. Do you see the relation now? So in the past 5 years, what has happened is NVIDIA was already doing it for 15 years, right? But they're doing it for the gaming industry. But now suddenly AI and ML is having the same sort of mathematical computation. Similar, right? So NVIDIA GPUs find a new application. Do you see the relation? So the graphics cards which were being used for gaming, uh, generating this 3D worlds, realistic worlds, is now suddenly used also for AI/ML. So which company becomes popular? The same company which is the leader in graphics card for gaming, and that's NVIDIA. That's the story. Okay. And I told you I'm using an AMD graphics card. So why is AMD not able to compete? Because AMD is still in that early phase where they are doing very good in terms of graphics for games, but we are still not reached the point where they can do very good graphics card for, I mean, they still call them graphics card, but you should, in a very near future, you'll start calling them AI ML cards and all. But still you call them GPUs, graphics processing unit. GPU, NVIDIA GPU means graphical processing unit. So originally for gaming, but now used for AI ML. Okay. So Ashish, what is the difference between normal graphic card and GPU? Normal graphic, there's no normal graphic card and GPU. Every graphic card is a GPU. So I think you're getting confused there. I think what the question you should ask is, what is the difference between a normal CPU and a GPU? There's no normal graphic card. Every graphic card is a GPU. It's a graphic processing unit. There is a powerful GPU. There can be a powerful GPU. There can be a weaker GPU, very powerful GPU, but they're all GPUs. But then there is a CPU. CPU is what is used for general purpose computing. But GPU is specifically optimized for mathematical calculations. Very high number of fast mathematical calculations. They're optimized for that. They're built for that. That's why they are applicable in AI and ML. Okay. Akash says, like, does it deep dive into math and everything we need to know for industry? See, you don't, I won't say you need to know a lot of math to properly deploy in AI ML in your career. But if you want to be a developer in AI ML, if you want to build sort of models and everything, then yes, you cannot ignore the math. But as a general person in the industry who is using AI and ML to improve his productivity, then you don't need to know the math. No. Just like if you're a salesperson or an accountant, you don't need to know how computers work internally. You use the Excel sheet, you use the Adobe PDF reader, but you don't know the exact programming language which was used to build that. So in that the same way, if you want to deploy AI and ML, if you want to use AI ML, you don't need the math. But if you're going to build AI ML, then you need the math. Ashish has raised his hand. Ashish, please go ahead and ask the question. You can go
No,
ahead.
no, question is same. I was just confused. So till the time when the computation power of GPUs was not that much, the capacity was not that much.
Mhm.
It was used for gamings, like uh, this small games like Need for Speed or something initially.
Yes.
And
Yes.
now since the computation power of has evolved,
Yes.
India has evolved its GPUs so
Mhm.
that it can compute huge amount of data. So now it is
Mhm.
being used by OpenAI for AI.
Yes,
It's
correct, correct. I'll give you an example. When I joined the industry 18 years ago with the Ministry of Defense, DRDO in India, I was working for a lab, a department where we were simulating certain warlike scenarios, like what if war happens and what would we do? And that is a very similar field to AI and ML, but it's called modeling and simulation, where we simulate like what if kind of a thing, like what if this happens? And in a war, there are hundreds and thousands of entities like tanks and helicopters and guns and missiles. And so you create a virtual world mathematically, and then you let it run, and then you see okay what happens if we do this, if we do that. So at that point of time, 18 years ago, we used to use something called CUDA. You can go and research that. What are CUDA processors? CUDA. And CUDA processors are like a subclass of, even at that time, 18 years ago, there was there. And I think NVIDIA or some other company was producing it. We called it CUDA processors. They had very high number of cores. Just like in your back then, you had Intel Duo, Core to Duo, and all two cores, and two core was a big thing back in 2008. But then CUDA at that time itself had 24 cores, 36 cores, 42 cores, and so on and so forth. So they were very powerful computers, and they were expensive. I mean, processors, they were very expensive, CUDA processors. Yeah, so from NVIDIA. So even back then, 18 years ago, they were there. So it's not like in the past few years they have become, very special. CUDA has been there for a long time, and CUDA is still used in AI/ML, right? So CUDA GPUs. So essentially speaking, yes, compute capacity has become cheaper. I would say cost-wise, cheaper. Okay, and that is why a lot of cloud providers like AWS and Google and all, Microsoft especially, because if you talk about ChatGPT, OpenAI, it is primarily funded by Microsoft. And Microsoft gives the compute capacity. It has its own data centers, Azure and all. So they procured these NVIDIA GPUs. Why were they able to procure it in such large numbers? Because they become cheaper. So yes, on one hand, the processing capacity of NVIDIA GPUs has increased, but on the other side, the cost has dramatically reduced compared to 2008. So the same CUDA processor, which would be in lakhs back in 2008, today you can buy it for a few thousands. So these cloud providers went ahead and procured these NVIDIA GPUs for a very small amount of money. They created their data centers. Even in India, we are setting up a lot of data centers. Adani Group, Connex, are setting up a lot of data centers. They're procuring a lot of NVIDIA GPUs. But the cost factor, I'm once again mentioning here, because they have become cheaper. Yes.
Might be an early stage to ask, but suppose if we run model like neural network for any model, like
Yes.
for anything,
Mhm.
it takes time than a normal a logistic model or anything. It
Mhm.
takes more time to process. So
Yes.
is it because of processing capacity of our hardware, or is it because we don't have a GPU on it on our systems?
Which sort of calculation are you referring to? Which sort of computation?
Suppose I have a 10 MB or 20 MB data file, and I just
Uh-huh.
in Python we build a simple model of with neural networks.
Have you done that?
Yes,
Have you done that? Have you
yes,
done that?
yes,
Okay.
yes.
How much time did it took to
It took
train up on its?
it takes more time than than a normal logistic regression model or any model.
Mhm.
So is it
That is,
because
yes, that is because of the limitation of. So have you used GPUs there on your
no,
system?
it was my score to do a laptop only. So it
No, no.
used to
You.
take
What I mean is, did you enable GPU there or only CPU?
no
Normal CPU was used. Okay.
normal CPU. We
Yes.
have to
So
explicitly
normal.
enable it.
Yes. So the slow speed that you are getting there, the slow processing is primarily because CPUs are not optimized for such kind of mathematical operation. They are recursive, repetitive mathematical operations, which a CPU is not optimized for. CPU will
Okay,
do it, but it will do it much slower than a GPU.
okay,
Because GPU is supposed to do the same operation, mathematical recursive operation over and over and over again parallelly. CPU is not built for such kind of optimization. Although that's a
oh,
very, deep sort of hardware, but you don't need to go in that direction. Just need to understand the kind of processing that is required in AI/ML training. GPUs perform
okay.
better, and especially NVIDIA
Oh,
GPUs. Remember,
yeah, really, they are
not your
masters.
AMD no, yeah, not your AMD GPUs, but NVIDIA GPUs. Okay, okay.
Okay.
Okay, people talk of terms like llama, RAG. Please explain. Yeah, we'll come to that as we move forward. Which affordable desktop would you suggest for learning AI? Well, for learning AI, you can go for any desktop because today you as I think Ashish was asking this question or some who was asking this question with whom I was having this conversation. You did that experiment on your laptop or desktop, but you don't need to do that. You can do that in the cloud. I was just showing SageMaker in the beginning of this session. You can use SageMaker for that.
Yes, okay,
Of course you will pay some money, but if you want to do it seriously as a company or a project, then SageMaker is a better option for you. You can choose any GPU class there based upon your budget, and that will give you the proper result. So to answer Dr. Pawan, you don't need to buy any computer because you do these learnings on cloud these days, which is actually cheaper than buying a machine of your own. Dr. Burns says my desktop keeps giving prompts like Trojan, my modified DL. So that is antivirus related stuff. Okay. That's not related to this. So with this, I would like to conclude today's session. There are a lot more interesting stuff coming up in the sessions to come, especially tomorrow, the IT sector, basically for all of you, right? So I thank you all for attending today's session. Have a good night. Have a great day ahead. I'll see you all tomorrow, 7 o'clock in the evening, and we will continue our discussion from here, right? With this, I'm going to end the webinar. See you all tomorrow.
Thank you.